Hi, everybody. This is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles Stories of the Supernatural. And I hope you enjoy this new show, whether you're viewing it on the internet or listening to a podcast version of the episode. I do want to thank you for being part of my audience. You can also find links to videos or podcasts on miamighostchronicles.com, as well as where you can submit your story about any eerie experiences you've had, which I would love to hear about. Just go to the Submit Your Story tab. Please subscribe to our channel so that you receive notification of when we release a new show. And find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. This is where I usually live stream and where I give you a behind the scenes look at locations where new episodes are being filmed at. I also tell you about all the interesting guests that will be appearing soon on Stories of the Supernatural. I hope you enjoy the show, and I think you are all wonderful. Hi, everybody. This is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles Stories of the Supernatural. How are you all doing today? Well, I'm very, very, very good because of the guest I have. And this is a lady. She is one of my peeps. She's a paranormal investigator. She's also an author. She's a co-author of a new paranormal mysteries. One of them titled Legacy of the Cross and Legacy of the Horsemen. However, she also has nonfiction work having to do with paranormal work since she's been a researcher for, and I was already at least 20 years, but I think it's going to be more like in the 35 years. She left her job as a paralegal to be a full-time writer and pursue other interests. She's actively out in the community performing investigations and educating the public in regards to paranormal activity. She also speaks extensively throughout the country, educating people in the paranormal and promoting her books. We were already talking before rolling that some people, yeah, they do need a lot of education when it comes to the paranormal. She lives in Michigan with her husband, two dogs, and three black cats. And I was already introduced to one of her black cats who decided to make an interest. It was great. So, how are you today, Debbie?
I'm great. How are you?
Fantastic. Well, anyway, um, I was going to ask you what I ask all my guests. Uh, how did you get in? How did you get interested in the paranormal? Did you have an experience as a kid, as an adult? What happened?
Um, I've been able to see and communicate with spirits as long as I can remember. And my first encounter was with a young man named Nathaniel
Okay.
who lived upstairs in my great aunt's house. It wasn't used as living space, it was storage, and it was wonderful to play in when you were a child.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, he was my first best friend. I mean,
Wow.
we just played and played. He was born, no, he died in 1853. He was mentally challenged.
Okay.
And back in those days, they were kept away
Yes.
from society.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he moved into my aunt's second floor when his house, three doors down, was torn down to make way for a gas station.
Oh. And did anybody become aware of your ability to do this as young as you were? It sounds like.
Well, you have to remember it was the 60s.
Uh huh.
They weren't accepting. So I
No.
learned very fast that unless you want to be dragged from psychiatrist to psychiatrist, it's better just not to
Okay.
tell anybody
It's like, uh-huh. Okay. Yes.
what you can do. And I'm sure it alarmed my parents because I was adopted, and they probably thought, "Oh my gosh,
Oops.
yeah, oops."
Well, yeah, and you know what? And you're absolutely right. It's incredible sometimes how young or how quickly children learn. I better not talk about that again. Okay, because
You learn very fast.
yeah. Yeah, what you thought, what you think everybody
When you're
else can
five,
see
six
or
years old.
hear, you find out not
Yeah, I
not
mean, I
everybody.
always thought, why can't anyone else see and hear these people? I have
Hmm.
no problem with it,
And
and it took me a while to realize, oh wait, no one I know can do this.
right.
So I kept it hidden for years, all through high school. I mean, imagine being able to do that in high school, as if
Yeah,
high school
wow.
isn't hard enough, right?
Yeah,
And in
especially
fact,
when people when you're that age, you definitely do not want to be the odd man out.
no, my best friend didn't know what I could do till my first book came out.
You're kidding. Not even your best friend?
No,
Wow. You were like, forget it. I don't want to find out the hard way that my friend is not going to be as understanding as I would hope.
yeah, yeah, because it was nothing that came up when we were young. It was the '70s.
So let me ask you something. Did this entity? Did you just see him at your aunt's house when you would go
No,
there?
he wouldn't even come off the second floor.
He would stay on the second floor.
He would
Okay.
stay on the second floor. Um, there was a stairway, and if you looked one way, you looked into the dining room. The other way was a hallway that went down to the bathroom and the bedroom.
Uh
And
huh.
every once in a while, I'd see him peeking around the corner to see
Okay.
what was going on, but he wouldn't come down. And then, my aunt died. My dad sold the house.
Okay.
And when I was getting married, my husband and I were looking for a place.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who had bought my aunt's house, and my aunt had told me when she died, I was 15, that I would have her house when I got married.
Okay.
And I went, okay, I'm 15. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Well, the people that about 2 months before the wedding, the people that bought the house called my dad. They were getting a divorce. My dad bought the house back and sold it to me.
Wow.
So the first
Incredible.
thing I did when I got the keys to the house, I ran upstairs to see if Nathaniel was there.
Uh huh.
And I made it to the top of the stairs and around the corner. And then I was enveloped in a ghost hug, which is kind of like walking through jello.
Okay. So he was there.
He was there. He was happy to see me. I was happy to see him. Um, we must have spent 2 hours just talking, catching up.
Okay.
Um, and then, I had kids, and my son would start to talk to him.
Oh,
And
so
I said,
your
no, it's
son. Okay.
and I said, it's time for you to go.
Okay.
It's not fair to keep you here. You've been here long enough. If you go
Okay.
into the light, you'll be healed.
Okay. And he
You, you
did?
need you need to go. Well, it took a while, and it took me calling a couple of my guides over to
Okay.
help them make the transition. And then a few years later, when we moved out, I was the last person in the house, making sure everything was out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was coming out of my son's room, and Nathaniel was in the hallway, and he was whole. He was
Okay.
whole.
Okay.
And he said, hi. And I went, hi, what are you doing here? He goes, I just came to say goodbye and
But
thank you.
it's different. It's a different thing. It's not bound here. I'm just stopping by to say goodbye.
I'm stopping by to say thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I said, you're welcome. And he said, I'll see you again. I said, I know. He goes, but not for a long time. And I
Wow.
said, okay. And, we always used to go, love you. And he
That's
went like that, and then he was gone.
what do you, Debbie, why do you think he was stuck there? Was because he didn't understand when he died what had happened to him, or was it
No, he knew
fear?
he was dead. He was afraid to go because he was afraid he would be ridiculed and bullied like he was when he was alive.
Oh my,
He didn't
yeah.
understand that
Right.
he would be made whole once he went into the light.
Okay.
And even when I told him that, as long as we had this relationship,
Mm-hmm.
he didn't quite buy it. So it took a little while, and my guides helped. A couple of my guides helped, and I was just so glad that he made that. I mean, I missed him, but it was better for him.
Of course. Of course. And we'll talk about it a little bit later because I think sometimes some of these places that they don't realize that to keep that haunted I don't know, that haunted reputation of a certain location, if it truly is haunted, you might be actually wanting to bind a human soul or a spirit to a place that's not really the best place for it. Not
No,
ultimately.
no, and he left. I mean, yeah, there were three more he left behind,
Mm-hmm.
but they had crossed and they came back every once in a while.
But that's different. It's almost
It's
like they
different.
had,
That was a choice.
yes, exactly. That was a choice. That was a
They'd come
choice.
back like it was relative. I'd smell my aunt's perfume around the baby's cribs.
Okay.
So I knew she was just checking on the babies, and then she
Right.
was gone.
Right. And that's what I tell people, once you've gone on and you dropped off that ego part of you that we all have when we're in a human body, you come back and check on your loved ones, for example, but you're not stuck here. You don't
Right.
like wanting to you're not going to see them every day, single day, all the time, because they kind of know you need to do your thing there. I can't be, you have to make your choices, that free will kind of thing. So,
Yeah. Yeah. You have to make your choices, and you know, just because they're on the other side
mhm.
doesn't mean that their soul still isn't ascending.
Right. Yeah, they're doing their own thing.
They're doing their own thing. Like I can imagine my dad, had a tea time. It's already
Right.
set up, with his
Yeah,
buddies that are up there. So I'm
of
sure he's having a
course.
blast,
Which is what, really, which is what we all hope for, as far as, if you want to, let's say, go with a concept of heaven, that each of us has their own version of heaven depending on what makes you happy, and
Yeah,
it's like, it could be like infinity plus infinity as to each person's version of what would make them ultimately happy. But
right,
yeah, I believe that, yes, sometimes a lot of spirits that are bound are because of exactly what you described. They're afraid of something. In this case, he sounded like he was afraid of reliving what he had experienced
right. But
during
yet
his
I
lifetime.
find too that sometimes the people that are left behind
Mm-hmm.
are grieving so much that they inadvertently hold that spirit here.
Yes, yes,
And
yes,
that's the hardest one to deal with.
yes, because they want to console that loved one that's left behind, especially if they're saying things like, don't leave, I want you to be here. A lot of the things
Right.
that people say when they're grieving, when the pain is fresh.
Yeah.
And
And that's the hardest one to explain to people because they're,
yes,
in the grieving process, but that's a hard one.
yes, it is. It is, especially when
Because you have to
something's
explain to
very,
them, look, I understand you're in pain, but you can't hold the spirit here. They must move where they're supposed to be.
exactly.
And you'll see them again,
Mm-hmm.
but you
And
need to let them go.
exactly. That sometimes is, well, in the case of, when you ask somebody, do you truly love them? You know, it's like that's what you want. And it's very, I know it's a very difficult thing, especially when somebody's suffered a recent loss of somebody that's very close to them. That's a difficult thing, but doesn't nobody, it's not saying not to grieve. It's,
It's
you'd
let
be
them
surprised
go.
how powerful your words are, uh,
Yes.
to that spirit that might be hanging out a little bit, wanting to comfort you, wanting to leave, but at the same time seeing you distressed, that person distressed, that they stay
It's a
behind.
hard situation. It's a very hard situation all the way around.
So here you are. Did you moved out of the house, and then what happened after that? Did you luckily? Because I have a feeling though that maybe you found the ghost already living there, but I have a feeling you probably have some of them that follow you around just because you're psychic.
Yeah.
Uh huh.
But I've learned to kind of figure out what frequency they're at. It's kind of like a radio frequency.
Right.
And they're either going to operate very low or they're going to operate very high.
Mm-hmm.
So I've learned to adjust my frequency to keep most of it out.
Right.
So, like right now, the only thing that could get through would be a spirit that needs tremendous help,
Okay.
or one that's very powerful.
Okay.
They're
So
the only ones that could get through.
right, like that, and yeah, but of course, it sounds like you really learned how to manage something that you learned throughout the years.
Yeah, I mean, I had a very good mentor who lived in Wales.
Okay, and because I think that a lot of people don't realize that when for the discarnate that wants to get a message through, they don't care about your personal life or about your timelines or about your privacy or about your body space, or they just want to like get through.
Yeah. Well, I use the analogy, like in the summer when you turn a light on outside at night and every bug in 3 counties comes toward that light. To them, people that do what I do, we're that light.
Yes.
So
Yes.
if you don't learn how to block it or at least regulate it, you're going to be claustrophobic. It's going to
Yes.
be too much. It's just too much.
And Debbie, one of the things I think that sometimes people are also unaware of is everybody thinks that, you're going to go to the haunted place to find the ghosts, but they don't realize that there's a lot of discarnates out there that are not bound to a place. In other words, they're all over the place.
They're all over, and it's not that hard to distinguish for me. Like I generally know, okay, this one belongs here. This one's just here because I opened up.
Okay. Right.
And because when I go in to a place initially, um, I drop all shields. I drop everything, go wide open, because
Mm-hmm.
then I can absorb all that energy, and then I just start to adjust to
All
get rid of
right.
the static, and then I
Mm-hmm.
can focus on just what's in that house or that building or that church or that restaurant or wherever I am.
So was there an event or what happened that propelled you into going into investigations and research?
Um, I think it was just a natural curiosity,
Okay.
because then when people started to figure out what I could do,
Mm-hmm.
or if I heard about a place, like the main catalyst, I think, when I was in college, I had a psych professor that was a parapsychologist. That's
Oh,
the
okay.
first time I'd heard of a parapsychologist.
Okay.
And I had an 8 o'clock Monday class. And he'd come in some Mondays and he'd be all hyped up because of an investigation he'd done that weekend. And he'd tell us about what he'd done.
Uh-huh.
And he came in one day and he held up a picture of this house. And he said, "We were at this house." And I fixated on it. And without even thinking, I got up and I took the picture and I held it. I told him everything he needed to know about that house.
And he must have been, hey, you got to come
I
with me on
told him
my
about
next
the
my next
murders. I told him about the
investigation.
suicides. I
Oh,
told him about the spirits that were there. I told him about a negative energy that was there. And I literally cleared the classroom because people were freaking out.
I bet.
And he just sat down. He goes, "Oh, you are so coming with me."
I was about to say, didn't he drag you like you're coming with me next time I'm going there because you're going to be my human barometer and you're gonna give me the scoop on what's going on.
And then, when I worked with him, it was like, just give me an address or come pick me up. Don't tell me anything about the place.
Mm-hmm.
Don't tell me where
Mm-hmm.
we're going. I don't want to know anything. Just pick me up or I'll meet you there. Just give me an address or pick me up and take me there. And the only thing you need to do is feed me afterwards because I'm going to be really hungry and really tired.
It's like, what was it like Popeye like Wimpy and like give me a cheeseburger and it's all good.
Well, when you're in college.
Yeah, of course. I know. It's like, yeah, back
So I
then.
was like 18, 19, and that really solidified it for me.
Okay. So I was about to say because a lot of times it happens like that you do that case where or that somebody comes to you for help. In this case it wasn't that he needed the help. In a way he did, but not really. He wasn't a family or
No, because he
whoever.
knew what I was telling him. That's what freaked him out
Of
because he didn't.
course. It was like, how could she know? There was no way she was going to know that day I was going to walk in with a photograph of this house and
And
this
I was giving him
case.
names. I was giving him,
Right. Exactly.
this is what happened there.
And what happened in
And
the case? I'm curious to know. Did he ever go back or what happened with that?
we went back. He took me back. We went back the next weekend. The house was empty.
Okay.
And I remember walking up to the house and the energy was so bad.
Okay.
And I remember walking up to the house and I put my hand on the doorknob
Okay.
and everything went red, then it went white.
What?
And then I just like pulled my hand off and I literally just dropped to the ground. And he's like, "Are you okay?" I said, "Just leave me alone for a minute." Just someone needs to open the door.
Okay.
So I
And
found, I mean, it was 19 is the first time I'd really used it like
right,
this.
right.
And I didn't know
S-
what to expect. I
So
didn't
you
know if
got
I,
like the double barrel welcome there. So
yeah,
let me ask you, do you think that because a lot of times people think about it, was it what the events that happened there made it feel like that, or was there something already there that was a catalyst that made all these bad events take place? Like an unusual amount of tragedies, in other words.
no, I think it was just, I think what I felt was a lot of residual energy from all the bad things that had taken place
Okay.
there.
Okay.
And I think that it was just one of those tragic families.
Okay. Why, it had always been that one family that had suffered all these misfortunes?
It'd been one family.
Okay.
The last one had died
Okay.
or was elderly, and for some reason the house was being sold.
Okay.
And when the family or whoever had gone in to start clearing out the stuff,
Okay.
a whole bunch of really bizarre stuff had started to happen to them. I don't remember all the details. It was eons ago.
Okay.
But that's when they got a hold of this guy, and
It was empty. It was like, okay.
it was pretty much empty. There were a few pieces left, only because they had been so frightened to go back in.
I bet.
I mean, I wasn't real thrilled to be there, I'll tell you that much,
And that was
you
only for a
know,
little bit.
but I was so young and I'd never really stretched my abilities like that before. So it was all new to me, too. And then that's when I realized I gotta learn how to control this.
Right. Or if not, forget it. I'm going to be
Yeah, I'm gonna go
overcome.
crazy. Yeah.
And is that when you started, you went out and you tried to find a mentor or somebody that could help you with that?
Actually, I found the mentor years later. I mostly did a lot of reading,
Mm-hmm.
um, try to figure out what was going on. And then I put myself in places that were haunted or had some type of energy, and
Okay.
I practice. If it was a place I felt kind of safe, like, okay, I know there's nothing bad here. I don't know how I know there's nothing bad here. I just know
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing bad here. So I put myself in positions to where I would practice.
Okay.
So I kind of learned how to control a lot of it myself. But
Okay.
I didn't find my mentor till I was in my 40s.
Okay. Okay.
So,
So you were
yeah,
like do it yourself, DIY.
I spent a lot of time at Greenfield Village, which
Okay.
is like this historical,
Mm-hmm.
place by us, like by Henry Ford Museum and stuff like that, because there's a lot of energy. And I don't think they liked me very much.
Why?
Oh, because I went on like, there's all these old houses, like Thomas Edison's house is there, and,
Okay.
all these historical houses and everything. And you go on this little tour, and the docents take you in the house and they say, well, this is how it looked when he was living here. And I'm like,
Let me guess,
no,
Debbie.
really, it wasn't.
You make them look bad. No.
He never owned
Okay, I get
that.
it. I know why they
Years.
didn't like it because you're making them look really bad and inaccurate.
I could see what the place, it's called psychometry.
Mm-hmm.
I could see what the place looked like when he did live there,
Okay.
and yeah, I don't think they liked me very
So when they
much.
saw you, they're like, she's back again. Darn it,
Well,
no.
if you're going to be historically accurate, be historically accurate. And if you want my help, I'll give it. But
Right. I mean, let's face it. Most people on those tour had no idea that what they were saying was accurate or not, except for when you
no,
were taking the tour along with
I
everybody
mean, if
else.
I had known, I wouldn't have either. Like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
But in my head, I'm seeing how it was, and I'm going, yeah, not so much.
Yeah. It's like, boy, did you rain on their parade.
I felt really bad, but it was like, well, if you're going to be historically accurate, be accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially like, yeah, I know what you mean exactly. Now, before we started recording, and it sounds like like it's everything. It's and that this is why I tell us also a lot of people because of course this thing with paranormal investigations and ghost hunting, all this becoming so mainstream reality. I say, you know what? The truth is, you can read all the books you want, you can look at all the TV shows you want, but nothing replaces field work, going out there.
No, and
There's no
there's no
shortcut for it.
feeling. You think you're scared watching Paranormal Witness? Yeah, walk into some of the places I've been. I'll show you fear.
Oh yeah, but you got
Yeah,
to
you
do it.
know,
There's it just you can't like say or people that think like you said they've read. Oh, I'm ready now. I can do it. It's like not really.
no,
No,
no, you
you could
can't.
go out there. There's no shortcut for that experience.
And
And
people always ask me, how do I be a paranormal investigator? I'm like, hook up with a team.
yes,
It's a reputable team
reputable. And I'm glad you pointed
that's
that
been
out.
doing this for a while and
Yes,
see if they'll take you on and train you
yeah,
because nothing can prepare you for what you're about
yes,
to do. I
yes.
mean, even the most seasoned investigators, including me, I still get scared.
Yeah, of course. You have those moments of like what? Uh,
I'll freely admit it. I still get scared.
you know, I, I've known of a lot of groups that have lost members because they've had a real genuine encounter of some type. And it doesn't really I've heard of somebody being like tapped on the shoulder and that was enough. She ran out of the house, hyperventilating, had to be taken home.
Yeah, I mean, they don't, I think somewhere deep down inside, they don't think it's real.
Yes, exactly.
And
Exactly.
then they have a real encounter
Yeah.
and they're going, whoa, back up the bus. I didn't sign up for this.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, when I was on Black River Paranormal,
Mhm.
one of the heads of Black River Paranormal, um, he's more scientific.
Okay.
He's our science guy. He's
Okay.
well, we have ley lines running through here. He runs the equipment. I mean, he believes, but he's kind of a little bit skeptical too, which is
Right.
good.
Which is okay. That's okay.
No, I mean, I like that because sometimes it grounds me.
Yes. Well,
Makes me step back and look at things differently, and I like that.
well, the thing is, as with any type of scientific approach, the whole basis of science is that you need to be able to quantify whatever it is that you're trying to prove, which is where what we were talking about earlier, that now they have all these different equipments. I mean, you name it, just to gauge EMF readings, recorders, I mean, they've got a gazillion cameras. Because, of course, like you said, I don't see anything wrong with the science part of it. I just think though that sometimes the supernatural is sometimes too fluid and unpredictable to
Yeah,
be able to catch it. That doesn't mean, in other words, when they can't produce proof, that doesn't mean
it
it's not
doesn't mean
there.
there's nothing there.
Exactly. And I think that that's sometimes where the problem comes in. I understand the skeptical part because God knows that there's a lot of things that can happen that has absolutely nothing to do with the paranormal.
Oh, tons of things,
you know and if you're going to
tons of
go
things.
down that thing, and as a matter of fact what we were talking about earlier, which I wanted to bring up when we talked about the D word, which is overused, the demon
Yes,
word. And I wanted to talk with you about that, Debbie, because you made mention, which I agree totally, that not only do some people get all excited like yay it's a ghost, that some of them want a what, a demon. It's like,
and it's like, why would you ever want one?
why would you ever want one? Because this is not like.
They don't understand. Like, take like the worst haunting you've seen on one of
Mm-hmm.
these reality TV shows, like
Yes.
the worst one you've ever seen. Multiply it by 100,000. It's a haunting on steroids,
Yes.
and it's dangerous.
Yes, it is. It is
It's
dangerous.
so they can kill you,
Yes. And sometimes they're not bound to like, oh, you're gonna leave the house. It could it goes
follow
with
you.
you. Yes. It.
Yeah, they can follow you. You know, after my encounter, um, I learned one thing. It taught me many things, but one thing it did teach me that no matter where you are, no matter where you go, you have nowhere to run
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
because I've marked you. I know you. You know me. I can find you anywhere.
Yes, and it's time is not linear, not the way we think of it. Like if I leave the building or I go to another
Yeah,
city.
and one thing I learned about them, and I think I put it in my book, Something Wicked. They have rules. They have one rule only, and they must follow it, and they do religiously. Um, they must be invited in,
Yes,
but they take it very literally.
and some people are very foolish.
Well, like let's say you move into a home that you just purchased,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a spirit there, and you think it's a ghost,
Right.
okay? Because it's not really doing much, but you know it's there.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't leave immediately and not come back to that demon, you've accepted it into your life. That's how literal they are.
Right. And you might be
And
thinking, I didn't invite it, but it's almost
the
like,
fact that you didn't leave,
right,
you accepted it into your
right. It
life.
was like, you don't say anything and I'll take that as a yes.
I mean, as a ghost hunter, from a ghost hunting perspective,
Mm-hmm.
like if you go to a place you haven't been and you run into one of them, if you leave and never come back there, you're good. If you leave and go back, that you've accepted it because you know what you're walking into.
So let me
Now,
ask you, is that what happened with you, Debbie, or how did this occur?
mm, no, I wish it was that easy. Well, yeah, kind of in a way, I guess it is. With me, it was this big old mansion, abandoned mansion. Well, actually, it was an abandoned. No one was living in it. It had been gutted. People
Okay.
were going to restore it. They ran into some problems. They moved out.
Okay.
A friend of mine knew the owners, and I had heard about this house in town. I hadn't lived in the area very long,
Okay.
and I went to a historical candlelight walk, which turned into a ghost walk, which made me very happy.
And you were like, yay!
Yay, ghosts! And they were talking about this house. And I didn't know where it was. I mean, you get me off the main road, I'm lost because it's a
Mm-hmm.
totally new area. And I met my friend Linda there, and um, she said, "Oh, I know the house. Come over tomorrow. I'll show it to you." So
Okay.
she gave me directions, and I left my house, and I'm going down this road, and all of a sudden, thank God there was no one behind me. I literally felt like I had run into a wall,
Really?
and I slammed on my brakes, spun my Jeep almost all the way around, and I'm like, "What the hell was that?" And I look up, and there's this huge mansion,
Okay.
and I went, "Whoa, what kind of energy is that?" And I'm like, I'll figure it out. So I left and went over to my friend's house. I told her what had happened. She goes, yeah, that's the house.
One of those robber baron mansions, like Victorian type of things that
Oh,
were.
it was a big Victorian mansion. It
Right.
was like beautiful. It was the
Uh-huh.
original footprint was 3,000 square feet.
Wow, that's huge.
An addition had been added. So total it was 6,000 square feet.
Wow. I,
Um, she said, that's the house. And I'm like, you got to get me in that house.
okay.
So we drive back over to the house and we walked around the whole outside. And I walked up to the front porch and I put my hand on the doorknob and something big growled at me.
Oh, oh, oh,
And I
oh.
went, do they have a dog? And
You're
she
just like,
went,
let me make sure before I jump into the.
and she goes, no. And I said, well,
Oh,
something, a really big dog just growled at me. She goes, there's no dog. So we started looking around like we're the neighbors' yards.
uh-huh.
There's no dog. Warning number one, blew it
Okay.
off.
Okay.
Right. Went in the side door, which is the addition. Energy was fine. There was nothing there. I crossed the threshold into the original footprint. It was a whole different world. I
Wow.
literally had to hang on to the door jambs.
Wow.
And I heard this voice in my head go, welcome home. We've been waiting for you. And I went,
Mm.
really?
Okay.
So we're walking through the first floor, and when you're going toward the front of the house, on your right, there are two parlors separated by pocket doors. Gentleman's
Right,
parlor,
right. Yeah, I
men's
remember
parlor.
like those. Yeah, those receiving parlors. Yeah.
So I walked into the one parlor, and I could feel something coming up through the floor. Just the energy coming up through the floor was just outrageous. And I'm like, what is that? So my friend called me up and I go, okay, so we go up to the second floor. It was okay. We're on our way up to the third floor. She goes, oh yeah, be careful when you almost get to the top. Something tries to push you down the stair. And I went, cool. So I head up to the third floor. I'm 3 stairs from the top, 2 stairs up the top. I'm hanging onto the railing because I've been
Uh-huh.
warned. And I feel the hands and then I see the entity and I went, back off.
Okay.
And this entity, it was the son of the original owner, James. He scurried off into the third floor. Well, then he got curious because someone could see him and talk to him. He hadn't
Oh,
talked to anybody in 150 years.
okay.
So my friend Linda's taking pictures, and in every picture, there's a mist behind me of this man.
Wow.
Um, he's following me around like a little puppy
Yeah, I
dog
was
now.
gonna say he wanted like we gotta.
Communicate. So then we went down to the basement, and when you go down the basement stairs, there's all these rooms, little rooms, and they're all concrete floors, except for the one on your left, which is a dirt floor.
Okay.
It has the furnace and hot water. It's a huge rectangular room.
Okay.
So when you walk into the room, you're actually at the back of the room, and then it goes forward toward the
Hmm.
front of the house. And I saw a hole in the wall that I think went under the front porch.
Okay.
And I go, I wonder if whatever growled at me lives in there.
Oh, because it was right there, right. I see what you're saying. That
It
porch
was right under the front
under
porch.
the front porch, that door, that front door area.
Yeah. So I go to walk toward it, and I felt this energy coming. I have never felt anything like this before. And it literally pushed me against the back wall and just kind of held me there. Like I couldn't even see it, which freaked me out because normally I could see what
And you were
I
like,
I couldn't see it.
and
I couldn't even
let
sense
me
it
tell you something.
except for
Beware of basements, man. I don't know why basements are always like
I
whatever's
don't know.
there. And you were
So
like, you.
finally I kind of forced my way out and I went and I'm not ashamed to say it, I went flying up those stairs and
I
out of that
bet you was
house.
like, yeah, okay, whatever it is, I don't want to know any more about it. Thanks.
And I was just like, whoa, because nothing like that's ever happened to me before.
Okay. And what did your friend? Was your friend? She must have been wigged out, looking.
No, she's fearless, right? She doesn't have she doesn't have a psychic bone in her body. She can't feel any energy.
Okay, so
She's
she's
like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I couldn't even put a sentence together.
so yeah, ignorance is
And I
bliss kind of
said,
thing.
this is nuts. Nothing's chasing me. I'm going back in.
Oh boy.
So I went back in, went flying down the basement stairs, took one step in that room and went, this is not a good idea. I just walked out and went back upstairs. Well,
Okay.
then I got curious. I needed to know what this thing was because
Okay.
I'd never run into a demonic before.
Okay.
So I thought it was just like a really ticked off spirit.
So let me ask you, just out of curiosity, was the son of the owner, had he by this time like backed off, like, oh, she's going to basement, forget that, I'm not going down there?
He very rarely came out of the third
Oh,
floor.
so he stayed up there. Okay. Okay.
So I said, I got to figure out what this is
All right.
because I've never felt this before. So, I kept going back, kind of poking it with a stick, trying to figure, I did everything wrong, trying to figure out what type of entity this was. And it
Okay.
would react a little bit stronger every time. And I'm like, but I'm learning about you.
Okay.
And I had a friend online who was a demonologist. And he was online one night. And I said, hey, got this house. And I'm telling him what happened. And he goes, sweetheart, that's a demon. And I'm
Oh,
like, oh. And he goes, don't go back there. Leave it alone. And I'm like, okay. So what do? I probably went back
I was about
because
to
now
say you didn't listen, right?
I really gotta know.
Because, like you said, at that point, you were still underestimating what was
Yes.
there.
So I went back and a few times, nothing really happened. Kind of left it alone. And then one night, my friend Linda and I, we always went out and we'd take pictures. And I was on my way to take her home, and we stopped by the house, and she's taking pictures. And when you pull up by the house, you see the side of the house.
Okay.
And there's two windows on the top floor, on
Okay.
the second floor. And between those two windows was an upside down pentagram of fire.
What?
And I said, Linda, do you see that? She goes, see what? I said, you don't see that? She goes, no, see what? And I told her, she goes, I don't see it. And I was literally nauseous. Like I was ready to puke. The energy was so bad.
You were
And
the
this
only one seeing this?
and this beast came out of the
Are
fire.
you? Oh, look, the hair on my arms is standing up.
I looked at her and I went, run. And she went, why? I said, just run.
Talk about that horror movie moment, except it's not a movie.
Yeah, just trust me on this.
And
So I took her home. I ran home. I found my friend online. I said, I saw it. And he goes, you saw what? I said, I saw the demon. And he said, what did it look like? And I told him, and he goes, hang on, let me look it up for you. So he looked it up, and he comes back. He goes, that's Aman. I
wow.
said, okay. And he goes, Aman is a lower prince. He commands 30 legions. There's 10,000 demons per legion. Do the math.
Oh,
And I went, oh.
okay. So
Okay.
he's got reinforcements. Okay.
I'm a little outflanked.
Yeah.
Well, while all this was going on, now this is over a period of over a year. While all this is going on, all of a sudden I have this gray wolf showing up in my house.
Really?
My dogs see it. I see it. It lays under my desk. It lays on the floor. It lays on the stairs. Not all the time. It rides in the car. Okay. And I'm like, okay, I don't know who you are, but okay. Well, when this thing started to attack, this gray wolf showed up and he was protecting me. He was
That was
barking.
was that your totem?
I don't know what he was. And then it started to attack me in my house. It attacked me 3 times
So all
in
of
the
a
house.
sudden you didn't have to go over there anymore.
No, it was coming to me.
What do you
And I said,
think
I gotta make,
what do you think it was after that moment that you saw it? Do you think that that was when it decided, okay, like I'll take you up on the invite?
I think so.
All right.
And so um, I had to come up with a way to get rid of it. I'd
Okay.
never done this before,
Sure.
so I got a hold of my mentor, I got a hold of my friend, and I said, how do I get rid of this? They're like, look, you got to figure this out by yourself because this is personal. You have to figure it out.
And you're
You
like,
know, you
thanks.
have the tool. So I came up with a combination of candle magic, Wiccan,
Okay.
uh, a little Christianity thrown in. I think I'm going to cover all the bases.
Okay.
And next time it attacked, I heard it come in the house, like I felt it,
Okay.
and I'm ready for it. And I'm right in the middle of this ritual, and I stopped. And it looked at me, and I looked at it, and he goes, you stopped. Like I couldn't see it, but I like, knew it was there.
Right.
In my head, I heard him go, you stopped. I went, yes. And he goes, why? I said, because if I get rid of you, I'm no better than you, and I'm way better than you. But let you know, next time I will not be so generous.
Okay. And what
And
happened?
that was it.
Wow. And what do you think? Was it something that was invoked over there at that property? Or was it there
It's
before?
hard to say over there. I mean, it was Victorian times. Their
Hmm.
parlor games had to
Oh,
do with
with spiritualism and all of that. Yes.
spiritualism and all that. Um, when the son of the original owner was alive, when James was alive, he was not a nice person.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Um, because I noticed while investigating that house, when you went in the addition, um, there was nothing. It was a neutral zone.
Okay.
So that told me this since this didn't acknowledge the addition, I knew the addition was put on in early 1900s, like
Okay.
1905, 1909.
Okay.
So I know this thing was there before that. So it had to have been there when this family owned it, the original owners.
Okay. Okay.
So the house is house is torn down now, and When they tore it down, they filled in the basement. They didn't take it
Whoa.
out. There's now, I don't know, 4 or 5 houses on the property.
Makes you wonder if they've had any
They're closer
experience.
to the street. I know they hit the basement wall because when
Mm-hmm.
they were digging basements, I walked the property and I saw some of the field stone.
Okay, there you go.
And from what I hear in town, I've never seen it, so I can't swear to it. Some people say that they still see light shooting out from where the basement of the Hathaway house used to be.
Let me tell you something. See, that's the thing. Sometimes when people move into brand what they think is brand new property, and
It's
then they
not
get a
brand new.
big giant surprise, like
So,
hello.
I mean, I've walked the property before people lived there. I didn't feel it, but you got to figure that house was empty for a long time. It was torn down. Houses weren't built for 3 or 4 years after that. It had
Oh,
nothing to feed on.
so do you that family that had it right before it that you came in? Did you ever find out if they had had any experiences, and that's why
Oh,
they
they
said
had a
for?
ton of them.
Okay.
They had a ton of them. I think that's kind of what caused the divorce.
In other words, it was so right. Okay. Yeah, I've heard of that happening before.
Yeah,
Where
I think that this thing, at first I thought maybe James didn't go into the light because I thought maybe this thing was holding it there, holding him there.
right. That's that thought crossed my mind when you were talking about that.
But that wasn't the case. After speaking with James extensively, he was afraid of judgment.
Oh, he's one of those. Okay.
He's one of those. And I know his daughter, who died very young, she was 20 years old. She'd been married 3 months.
Okay.
She died of an illness of 1 week.
Wow.
Um, I know she had been back many, many, many times to try to convince him to go. And if his daughter can't get him to go,
Yeah.
I can't.
Okay.
So it was a judgment thing.
Yeah. It's like all of a
Plus there
sudden
were
they especially back then there was a lot of that. Heaven and
plus
hell.
there were yeah plus there were 2 wells on the property. One right
Oh.
by the front porch. Yeah. And well, actually, one like the basement would have been here, and the well was right here.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't. And there was a big cistern in a sealed room, and yeah, it didn't take too much to figure out how it got in.
Yes. And people don't
So
realize it's not that the building of the well or anything is bad, but you have to know how to do it the right way.
yeah, and
Um,
for the era the house was built in, spiritualism was a pastime of the rich.
yes. It was very popular also.
Yes, so I think that's what drew it in, and ever since all that happened, I have never seen that gray wolf again.
Wow.
So I don't know whether the wolf was the demon, but why would it protect me? Or whether it was a totem or a guide or
Mm-hmm.
something.
I know
Because I
that's
have I have never seen it again.
that is wow.
Yeah. And that's what kind of got me interested in working with, not with, but working, investigating cases where there was a possibility of a darker entity.
Right. And that's where I was going with this because we talked earlier like you get the people foolishly sometimes who think, "Oh, it's a ghost," or "Oh, it's a demon," until the reality hits them. And then there's the people that just they fall into it, in other words. Or
Yeah,
sometimes they stupidly invoke it or go someplace underestimating it, or like you said, they want the thrill but they really don't believe it's going to happen. And
right.
then they find out when it follows them home, or there's a million ways if you think about it that
Right. You have kids, you have teenagers are playing with Ouija
that
boards.
dabble in stuff also that
They're doing, or they think they have a ghost. Well, let's try to communicate with it, not
hmm
even thinking that it might have started out as a ghost, but now that you've tried to communicate with it, you've opened up this portal and
yes,
all this stuff, anything can come through, and good luck.
yes,
Get rid of it. Do I have a Ouija board? Yes, I have a Ouija board. Do I use it? No.
have to be really careful and know what you're doing.
You do. And I know what I'm doing. I just don't use it, but I also don't get rid of it because I don't want it to end up in a
Sure.
place where it should.
Sure.
So I
Yeah.
just keep it. It's in a box. It's box, and it's put away. And
But it's there.
that's gonna kind of be it. That's where it's gonna stay, and it's fine.
So, Debbie, what you're telling me is that you end up a lot of times being with the cavalry.
Yeah, kind of.
It's like,
Yeah, I'm kind of the
help,
Calvary.
help.
You know, um, I have a lot. Some teams that get a hold of me and go, hey, we did this investigation
Hmm.
and we have this entity and this is what we think it is. And,
Okay.
I talk to them and I go, yeah, yeah, that's pretty much it. Well, you think you could, yeah, if they're local, yeah, I'll go, because
And
now that I have this ritual down, I know it works.
okay.
Uh, um, I know it works well. Um, Sometimes it's like using a sledgehammer to kill a cockroach,
But hey,
but
it's
I
a
know it
cockroach.
works. Yeah, it's a cockroach. That's right. Those things will survive a nuclear holocaust.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's right. Cockroaches can walk around without a head or something like that. I don't know. It's
right. So yeah. So I don't do it a lot anymore.
mm-hmm.
Um, but I have a couple cases right now, as we were talking about earlier.
Yes. Yes, that we were
And they're
talking about.
local, and they're in the area, and they've read my books, and I don't think it's anything real bad. At least not yet.
Okay.
But I was only out there once. We didn't even do an investigation. It was just to meet with the neighbors and
Mm-hmm.
figure out, hey, what's going on? And um, at first I was gonna, chalk it up to the history of that area, the 15,000 years of history in the area.
Okay.
But then I was thinking about it the other night, and I went, I think it might be going by water.
Yes.
Because I was talking to my partner, we went out to dinner afterwards, and I said, "Gosh, this is almost like Shepherdstown."
Okay.
Where
Right.
you have like
Exactly. Yeah. That
my
shepherd's town.
underground
After a while, they
caverns.
figured out that where
Yes,
those.
traveling through underground
Mm-hmm.
caverns and
Right.
tunnels and stuff
Yes.
like that. And then that night I'm laying in bed and I'm thinking about it, and I went, "Oh yeah, maybe it's
Mm.
coming by water." So that's my latest theory that I need to.
And it's just because of what? Because there's different people in the area reporting it at different locations or more than one
Yeah, I
family.
mean, it's just this small little subdivision,
Okay.
and it's just so localized, and it's like just weird things. Like there's been, two suicides, and there's three
Okay.
suicides. There's been fires. There's been, people moving into this one house, and like they're either getting divorced or they
Okay.
turn into alcoholics, and then they move, and then another couple moves in. They seem fine, and then boom.
Okay.
So it's just like all these things happening all over the place at different times. And I'm like, you're not going to get such a high concentration in such a small area. It's got to be one entity. And it's really close to this town that I do a lot of investigating in. And I
Okay.
always keep saying that the whole town is haunted.
Really?
Yeah, oops, sorry.
It's okay. Don't worry
And
about it.
it's dawned on me that um, I've been thinking for years now, 15 years now, that, there's got to be like one entity kind of just,
Now I'm going
you
to
know,
ask you this: if we're really, if you're correct in believing it's one entity, are we talking here something that's non-human
I don't know. I'm
or an
not even sure
elemental? Is it?
because
I mean,
nothing
we don't even
happens.
have to go with a D word. It could be. Could it be an elemental of that?
I don't think it could be a water elemental given where it is.
Okay.
I mean, this town's right on the water.
Okay.
This subdivision is right on the water with canals behind all the houses that goes
Okay.
right out into the lake. Um, I haven't given much thought to what type. I'm not going to go with the big D
Mm-hmm.
yet because I don't have any evidence to support that.
Right.
Um, and the
Was
things that happen in this town aren't catastrophic enough.
okay.
The hauntings aren't severe enough to even remotely fall into that category.
Was there? I mean, I don't know how old is this subdivision, or was there a triggering event where then all of a sudden all these experiences started being reported, or has it just been happening for years and years and
I
years?
think it's been happening for years. The subdivision hasn't been there in relative terms all that long,
Okay.
maybe 50, 60 years.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Um, I'm just starting to trace back that property,
Okay.
to see. I mean, I know where it was many, many years ago because our area wasn't even discovered to the late 1700s except by
Okay.
Native Americans. It was
Okay.
huge Native American population,
Okay.
lots of villages. One archaeologist has even gone as far to say it's like they came here to bury their dead.
Okay. That's very possible. Yes.
I know some of the burial grounds that were excavated, and I know of one where they were replaced, two of where they were reinterred.
Okay.
The archaeologists did that. So we're digging up some skeletons that had almost like belts with skulls on them, like trophies. But remember, this can
Whoa.
go back 15,000 years.
Well, they had were any of the tribes there were the mound builders?
Yes, we had not big mounds, we had little
Little
mounds.
mounds. Okay.
A lot of them buried just underground. We had
Right.
a combination of both because our area was almost like a little neutral zone. We had like Potawatomi, we had some Ojibwe,
Mm-hmm.
but for the most part, it was almost like a neutral ground. And because of the hunting and the fishing and the land, and once a year, I know they used all the tribes around would you all converge here for almost like a Day of the Dead celebration, would bury their, bring their
Okay. So
dead, and
another
they,
right. Right.
yeah, there's just a lot here, and
The reason why I
I
ask you,
hesitate.
and I don't know if you want to research it, because some of the this is pre, it was Native Americans, but prior to what we now know as more modern
Right.
tribes. And I know that there were some, I want to say it was the Cahogas or something that did do some type of human sacrifice. Okay.
Yeah, I got to research and see who was in the area because I mean, I know it goes back like,
Yeah, it was like,
15,000 years, and it would have been way back. And there's books at the Historical Society that I just
right,
haven't
right.
delved into yet.
And the reason why I bring that up is, um, a lot of people sometimes thinks whether it's Native Americans, well, different civilizations that if they ever practiced human sacrifice, sometimes you think of it as they did it to prisoners of war, for example. But they found in some of the archaeologists that have dug up where, for example, and they think that this usually would happen like when there was something stressful like droughts or pestilence, that would they would sacrifice
Right. I
their own
mean,
people.
yeah. I mean, much as the Mayans did, and
Right. They didn't have the pyramid where they would like take out the heart, but they would do sacrifice because they were like trying to figure out what's wrong. And of course, no, the reason why I say is that, I mean, dead people, all the different whatever your civilization is, you take care of your dead different ways.
right.
But as far as the feeling though of a sacrifice victim, that puts a whole different feeling on it.
Yeah, I haven't. I've investigated this town so much.
And you know what?
Uh,
That over here in Florida, we have Lake Okeechobee, which is a huge lake.
right.
And I was reading that around the turn of the century, when they started like farming around the edges and fishing on it, they say that the fishermen would bring up just skeletons and skulls and skulls and skulls. They said that it looked like a pumpkin patch, and um, they dated them like these were pre. This was prior to they think some of the Tequesta Indians. It was like in some cases even prehistoric or BC as
Right.
far as some of the
And that,
tribes.
yeah, and that could very well be here.
And what they're thinking, of course, is that for them the lake was like a portal into the other world where they would put their dead there versus the burying them or some type of other that's why there were so many of them because they from what I understand there were hundreds of them.
And that would make sense. So yeah, I mean, I just met with these people this past weekend. So it's still fresh and young and
Yeah, and you're cooking it right. You're like, but let me ask you: have you
yeah,
ever
I'm
had?
supposed to be writing and I'm
Well, you know when
my brain's working on this.
sometimes you got to percolate things in your head.
Yeah, so I'm just like letting it settle for a few days and doing other things. And
Let me ask you, Debbie: have you ever had the experience where you have been called in on a case, but before you get there, whatever is there tries to scare you off?
I haven't had it try to scare me.
What's happened?
I get impressions
Okay.
um, of things. I haven't had it try to scare me off. It usually doesn't try to scare me till I'm physically there.
Okay. So,
Um, but I get like impressions. I get like
okay.
little flashes of pictures or
So
information or
that to get you ready for. And let me ask you for those paranormal researchers, ghost hunters out there, what advice would you give them if they ever go into any type of investigation where at some point they start recognizing, hopefully, that they might be dealing with a non-human or the D word demonic entity? What would advice would you give them? Retreat and reconnoiter or
retreat
what?
and retreat, regroup.
Okay.
Don't go right back in that night.
Okay.
Like retreat, go through your evidence, do your research, consult with whoever you need to consult with, and come up with a plan before go back in. Like I always, my team and we have a code word.
Okay. So
Um,
that's
and if I feel something dark
okay.
or something's not right,
Okay.
I will just very quietly we all have walkie talkies.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say the code word and immediately, no questions asked, everyone's outside.
Okay.
And then I go, okay, here's what I think, here's what I'm feeling, here's what I think we're dealing with. This is what I want you to watch out for. Watch out for thoughts that aren't your own.
Okay.
Watch out for emotions that aren't your own. Um, be careful. Don't go anywhere alone.
Okay.
If you go into the bathroom, if you have to go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom. Make sure whoever you're partnered with is standing right outside that door.
Okay. Have you had any of your
Yeah.
members ever been jumped, like and taken over, like one of these momentary?
No, no, never had that happen. Not that funny stuff that doesn't happen. I mean, yeah, we um we used to have this member. I won't say his name because I don't want to embarrass him, but he was kind of a big guy, tall,
Okay.
and not heavy, but kind of a big guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he thought he was all that in a bag of chips, and
Okay.
uh, big tough, mighty ghost hunter. And we were doing this historic barn that was inhabited by an elemental.
Oh.
And I didn't know it was an elemental at the time. I didn't know till much later than when this happened.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy whose barn it was raised thoroughbred racehorses.
Ooh.
And he had another barn he kept his horses in because his horses wouldn't go in this barn. It was a historic barn.
Okay.
So we go in this barn, and I said, this guy up into one of the lofts, and it's pitch black in there, just unbelievably dark in there. And I
Okay.
sent him up to the loft, and my partner and I were we're on the first floor. We're way on the other side of the barn,
Uh-huh.
and we hear this almost like a roar. I hear this guy scream. He is down the stairs of the loft. He is out of the barn. And my partner and I, we walk out of the barn, and we look at. So where do you think he is? And he goes, probably halfway home by now.
Yeah, I believe it.
He was just outside. Um, he's like, "Did you hear that?" We're like, "It was one of the horses. There's a stall with a
Oh
horse
my
behind,
God, you're
right
kidding.
behind the barn. There's a horse in it. There's a outdoor stable. There's a pregnant
Okay.
mare in there. It was a horse. Don't worry about it."
That guy, he
And my
grew
partner
wings
looks
on
at
his
me and
feet, huh?
he goes, "That wasn't a horse." I'm like, "I know." And
That is such a great story.
and
But
the
yeah.
guy who owned the barn, his son played in the barn all the time. Nothing ever happened to him.
Uh-huh.
He had an automatic pitching machine upstairs in
Uh-huh.
the loft, and there's a window up in the loft, and he used tennis balls. He used to practice. So we all were outside in the barnyard, and this thing is shooting tennis balls over our head. He's not aiming for us. He's shooting into the trees, and
So,
raining down like apples are just raining down,
uh-huh.
balls raining down out of the sky. I'm laughing. I think it's hysterical.
I'm telling you that.
And it wasn't until much later in the night that we figured out exactly what it. Well, actually, it wasn't until a couple weeks later we figured out exactly what had happened in that barn. What we figured out was through historical records, we could document it. This barn was a stop on the Underground Railroad.
Okay.
Now, when Doc had, he was a doctor that owned it.
Okay.
Um, he was digging. The barn had a dirt floor. He was digging a trench to put in water lines.
Okay.
And when he dug up two small bundles in old blankets. He unwrapped one. They were babies.
Oh my
Something
God.
grabbed him and threw him 30 feet across the barn. He reburied them, and my partner happened to be one of his patients.
Mm-hmm.
So we got in, and so what we found and figured is that some people on the Runaround Railroad, two of the women had probably had babies
Okay.
or twins that were stillborn,
Mm-hmm.
and they buried them. And because of hoodoo or voodoo, they probably summoned an elemental, which we would
Yes.
call it,
Yes.
to watch over the souls of these babies.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And an elemental, it's not good, it's not evil, it's neutral.
It has no moral compass the way you
Right?
can't
It
bargain with
just
it
knows
either.
what its mission is.
Yeah, exactly.
And its mission was to protect
Yes.
these babies.
Yes.
So that's why it acted so violently, because it was trying to protect these babies.
Yeah.
And Doc had a couple other teams in there before us, and they went in with the intent to get rid of this thing.
No, it
And,
was a sentinel. It was invoked as
and
a
they
sentinel.
had stuff thrown at them.
Oh,
I mean, all holy hell broke loose. And I knew that. So I said, okay, here's how we're going in. So I
yes.
walked in first. I said, look, here's the deal. I'm not here to get rid of you. I
Okay.
don't care that you're here. I just want to know your story. And you could feel all the energy in that barn just go whoosh.
Okay.
And then it started to play with us. That it was playing with us all night. Like I'm up in one of the lofts and I'm looking across at the other loft
Mm-hmm.
and I see the dark outline of a person standing next to me who I think is my partner.
And
And I went, hey, did you? No, it was,
whatever.
and it got me 3 or 4 times that night. And it
Wow.
was just playing. It wasn't, because it didn't feel threatened.
Okay.
And we were having a blast with it. I mean, we were just having a blast with it. And so we told the doc, don't dig in that barn.
Yeah.
Don't put horses in there. Your son's fine being in there. It's a child. This thing is set to protect children.
Right.
It's not going to hurt him at all. And it never bothered the young man, his
Right.
son. And so now he just uses it as a workroom. He doesn't even,
No problems then, right?
no problems. They coexist
Yeah.
perfectly. the spirits of the family that lived in that house um, are very active in the house.
Okay.
But no, as far as the barn goes, he just uses it as a workroom, and he always, when he says when he goes in, he always says, "I'm not here to disturb anything. I just need to get some work done. I'm just going to be in this little area." And he
Right.
stays away from where the babies are buried, and he never has a problem now. So
Yep.
it's just a matter, I think, of doing your research, figure out what happened there, and then 9 times out of 10, there's your answer. Then you just got to figure out how to deal with it.
Right. And and I'm glad you point that out because, I've had a lot conversations with people where sometimes they've called in groups, paranormal research groups that actually make it worse because of
Yeah,
exactly what you described. They go in there like with a preset of how they're going to handle it without ever really finding out first what is it that's actually there or what happened.
right. So I tend to go in very softly,
Mm-hmm.
and then if it escalates, I'm going to escalate at the same level.
Right. But first you wait to get there and find out what am I dealing with.
Yeah, what am I dealing with? I mean, generally, I have a pretty good idea from talking to the people. I have them keep journals, write down everything that happened.
Okay.
So I kind of have an idea before I even get there. Okay, I think I kind of know what this is, what I'm
Right.
dealing with. And then when I walk in, I'm either confirming what I think or I'm going, oh no, that's not it at all. And then,
Right.
we're walking through the steps. And my team knows, walk softly, talk softly, you know, don't escalate unless this thing escalates, don't provoke.
Yes. Yes.
I'm not a big provoker.
Mm.
I'm not going to go in there try to provoke this thing because there's no need for that generally.
I've heard a lot
I
of
mean,
bad
have I
outcomes
provoked
out
on
of people
occasion? Yeah,
provoking.
I remember one time distinctly where I provoked.
And what happened?
I was doing it to get the reaction.
Okay.
I knew it was a human spirit.
Okay.
Um, I pretty much knew it was these people's landlord who had passed away, who'd not been a real nice person in life.
Okay.
I know this person did not like women.
Ooh. One of those.
One of those. So he's the one that was hiding in the attic. And
Okay.
so I went in. Yeah, I provoked him. What's wrong? Are you afraid of a woman? Aren't you going to come out? You'll push these women that live here around. You're not going to come push me around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I provoked him. You
And
know, and then I figured out he was in the attic, and I'm like, I need to get up there. And they're like, well, it's screwed shut. And I said, well, get a screwdriver because
yeah, that's where he's
I'm
at.
going up there. So they unscrewed the opening, the hatch, and
Uh-huh.
pulled the stairs down. And I just went up to the top step because I wasn't going to fall through the ceiling,
Right.
and I had a tape recorder with me
Okay.
and camera, and I took some pictures and I'm taping and uh, I'm like, are you here? Um, what do you want me to do? That kind of thing. Just a
Right.
couple questions. And then I came down and I played it back and, are you here? Gordon is here, is what I got.
Wow. And that was the
And
guy's
I
name?
said, and I said, I don't know what you want me to do. And he went, die.
Oh. Oh.
I went, yeah, no.
No.
And this is
That's
one of those
funny.
cases where you use the ritual that's using a sledgehammer to get rid of a cockroach
Okay.
because he wasn't going to leave on his own.
Right.
And these poor women, these were older women, they were being pushed and shoved and bruised. And I'm
Let me
like,
ask you
no, no,
something. Had they screwed in the entrance to the attic because it wasn't safe or because at some point they thought it was up there?
no, just
It was
to
just
keep it.
to keep it
They'd just
securely
done
shut.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, they didn't know it was up there because to them it had been where they are,
Okay.
and they had like bowls of salt everywhere, every religious symbol you could possibly think. They had Bibles open. They
It's
had,
like, man, whatever it is.
I mean, they were armed to the teeth.
Yeah. And did they ever
So,
find out if were they the only ones to experience something like that there?
yeah, because
Wow.
they'd lived there since before he died, and
I was about to say that as far as the timing on it. Okay.
yeah, and so as I'm doing this ritual, my partner films everything,
Mm-hmm.
and his phone goes off, his text thing goes off. I'm like, look at him, I went, seriously?
Hey, man.
And he pulls out his phone and he goes, I don't know who this is from. I don't recognize the number. I'm like, what does it say? And it says, I'm leaving now.
What? Are you
And
ki-
I finished up and the whole energy in that house changed. Yeah, it's just a little text of,
I
I'm
am
leaving now.
leaving now. I'm telling you. Did you do like a double take? You must have been like, no. Tell me
I'm like,
that's.
no, 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 you're messing with me. He goes, no, look.
Oh, wow. And then after that, they were good?
After that, they were good.
That's sometimes what it takes to heave
Yeah,
home out the
sometimes.
front door, metaphorically
Yeah,
speaking. Like,
I mean, I walked into this house and it was like, whoa.
yeah,
Well,
yes.
but see, they thought they had a demon.
I bet they were probably scared
Well,
witless.
but in this case, they had good reason to think that.
Why? The guy was that dark?
No, because long time ago, when they were young,
Oh, here it
long time
comes.
ago, there had been a satanic cult that operated in the area. We'd always heard rumors of it. We never found it. We never, like, there was never really any proof that this cult even operated out there. It was all subjective.
Right, right.
And I'm talking to these women, they're sisters,
Okay.
and I realized they had been part of that cult and they had left the cult and been converted. They converted to Jesus Christ.
Oh my
They became
God.
Christian. So they had every reason to believe
No wonder.
there was an inhuman in that house. They had every reason to believe it based on their past.
No wonder. So basically, you got it confirmed that that cult had actually existed. It wasn't any more like the urban myth kind of thing, like,
It
yeah, how
wasn't
much
an
of this is
urban myth.
true?
No, it wasn't an urban myth.
Oh,
But it was
wow.
way back. I mean, not,
Yeah, but again, when we spoke about this, when you're talking something like this, it really doesn't matter when we're talking
it
way
doesn't
back.
matter. So, yeah, in their minds, I can see how they would think this is what they have based on their past.
Okay.
And the one thing I always tell my team, I always tell new ghost hunters, you cannot go into a client's house or a place of business or wherever it is you're investigating and use your reality.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go in and use your client's reality. Okay, because rea- perception is reality to these people. So if they're super Christian,
Yes.
all right, I have to operate within that reality.
Sure. Of course.
If they're atheists, I have
Mm-hmm.
to operate within that reality.
Yes.
So you always have to find out where those people are coming from, and then you operate in their reality. Even if you don't
Yes.
agree with it, even if you don't believe in it,
Right.
always operate in their reality because unless they believe, if your client believes 100% in what you're doing, no matter what you do, it won't work.
Right. And their perception is their
Is
reality.
is their reality.
And
So it has to be your reality while you're working with
yeah,
that client.
a professional investigator knows how to suspend their, like you said, their personal, whether it's their religious or spiritual beliefs, whatever, whether to say, I got to put this aside if I really want to help this person.
Right. And I have to operate within their belief system.
Yes, yes.
And that's what we do.
And
Even
but
if we don't
you know,
don't always agree with it,
but
I have to be there because no matter what I do in their house,
of
if
course,
they don't believe in what I'm doing, it's not going to work. It's
they're the
their
ones
house.
that are going to stay there, living there, or live there. They're
Right. I don't live there, they do.
yes. So I can imagine. No wonder they were like thinking, "Wow." It was just a really dark human spirit that, like you said, had been a jerk.
right. But to them, because of their
Oh,
past,
of course, they saw it through the lens of, oh,
yeah. So in that case, I didn't operate in that reality. I
mm-hmm,
said, look, it's really your old landlord, Gordon. And once I laid out what I had picked up and everything, they went, oh my gosh, she's right. It is. And they were so relieved. You could see the relief. And they're like, well, can you get rid of him? Yeah, him I can get rid of. A piece of cake.
right. Yeah.
So,
And there was, I want to say they should have been relieved. Definitely, like, this
yeah,
is, this is much easier to deal with.
right, right. They could deal with that. But in that case, I had to bring them into my reality.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, to put their mind at ease.
And
And
did they ever, Debbie, confide in you what happened that they at some point decided to
no,
break
and I
away from
didn't
that?
ask them.
Okay. No, I
I didn't
understand.
ask them because it just didn't seem appropriate.
Okay. No, I understand. I totally understand, especially when
I
it
mean, if
comes to
they would have wanted
confidential.
to volunteer, I mean, I never even mentioned the cult, but it became obvious from what I knew
Right, from beforehand.
from beforehand and some of the things they said, it became obvious to me that they had been a part of that years and years and years ago. These women were well into their mid to late 70s at this point,
Okay. So do you,
and I was not going to let these women live in this house and be harassed by something I
oh,
could
sure.
easily
Of
take
course. And
care
let
of.
me ask you, do you think that the rumors of that cult that do they still exist or they was just something that
As far
happened
as I know, no, I think they long time ago they were gone.
everybody went their own way and
Yeah, I mean, every once in a while you hear something, but I don't put much.
yeah,
I don't live that far north, and I don't really put that much stock into it.
okay.
Now I think maybe it's a lot of it's kids that have heard the legend and
Yeah.
are messing with something they shouldn't be messing with.
Yeah. So yeah, eventually you'll get some call one day. And when
Oh,
you start,
eventually, sooner
when
or
you start
later.
talking, when you start asking those questions like, where did you go? What did you
What did you
do?
do? Who
When
did
did
you
this
see?
start?
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean, eventually I'm going to get that call, and
yes.
um,
That's exactly how it starts.
I'm just going to have to resist the urge to just walk up and just slap the crap out of them and
Yeah, it's like, all
be
right,
done
yeah,
with it.
yeah. Unfortunately,
But yeah,
that's,
I don't think they're operating anymore. I haven't heard anything.
mm-hmm. I
Things have
know.
been pretty calm.
Well, I know that some places, for some reason, depending on what happened there, or because, like you said, certain like locations, if there's ley lines or something happened about certain places that um, some, I'm not going to say occult because there's a lot of occult practices out there that are not necessarily satanical, but for some
Right.
reason they just hold power. So certain groups, whatever it is, if they're trying to do any type of invocation, they like to go to this certain spot. And a lot of times it's lost on everybody outside of it why there's a special significance about certain places. That's why I
Yeah,
asked you.
and I think like with the town I'm dealing with, and um, where nothing really bad ever happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this little small town on the lake. It runs 3 blocks. It's got one stoplight. I mean,
Okay. It's like,
it's this awesome, cute little quaint little town. Nothing really bad happens there, but stuff happens. So
well,
with me, it's like there's just layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of history.
right. And you know as well as I do that sometimes it's even what happened on the land. That's
Right.
sometimes
I mean, once the area was being settled, the Native Americans rounded up. They were put on reservations. Some went on the
hmm
Trail of Tears. Some went
right.
somewhere else. And it was once a big shipping port. It's not even remotely close to that now, but
Right.
in its heyday, it was a big shipping port. You
Yeah.
had boats coming in and out.
Yes.
It's just layer upon layer upon layer of history. And after a while, all that just builds up. And
Yes.
some
People don't
people,
realize when places that when you have a lot of transients, that's why I say sometimes hotels, railroad depots, shipping ports, whatever, they get a lot of drama plays out over the years in these places.
yeah, train stations, um, all the hotels burned down except years ago,
Wow.
the big hotels that were there, they're no longer there.
Yeah.
Uh, the Historical Society is actually housed in one of the small eight-room, used to be an eight-room hotel
Really?
in a
Wow.
bar. It's now the Historical Society Museum,
Wow. So,
and it's haunted. I mean, it's nothing bad is
mm-hmm.
there. It's there's a very playful little spirit, little girl. She hangs out in the one of the bedrooms upstairs. It's done as like a Victorian, almost like a child's room with a
Okay.
bed, a dresser, and there's antique dolls in there, like things that she would recognize from her era.
From her area.
Um, she's a little mischievous. The wife of the original owner, when he died very young. They opened in 1881, and he died when he was 35.
Wow.
And his wife stayed on and ran the place, even though she
Okay.
wasn't allowed the bar. She still ran the place, and
Okay.
she makes her presence known. Emma makes her presence very well known at times,
Yeah.
and like we close for the winter because we do renovations and
Okay.
stuff like that. And so she's pretty active right now because things are being moved, and
Okay.
but the the museum board, I mean, they're really good. Like, one of them will walk in and go, "It's just me, Emma. We're just here to do it."
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? Sometimes, and that's all it takes sometimes, believe it or not. So that,
Yeah,
you know, it's
we
like
interact. We tell them what's going on and what we're doing, and
peaceful coexistence. It's like,
I mean, actually, we have a really fun not about the museum, but there's a cemetery out of town, and
whoa.
cemeteries normally aren't haunted. This is probably one of the most haunted places I've ever seen in my life.
Well, you know what? A lot of times, and I've not all the times, but you find sometimes close to the graveyards, they had what they call those unofficial graveyards, where they would, I mean, sometimes if you were a drifter, unknown,
Oh no, there
uh,
was a potter's field
a
in there.
prostitute, sometimes they had to bury you, and they would sometimes, because back then they even wanted to segregate the regular people. If you were a proper person, you deserved a proper
Oh
burial.
no, no, no.
They
This
didn't
one
do
had a
that out
potter's
there.
field. This one had a potter's field.
It did have a potter's field.
It did
Okay.
have a potter's field. Um, we were actually in there one night investigating, and there's when you walk in the front gates, the road kind of goes like off to the side. Then there's a big circle. In the middle of that circle is a white building, and
Okay.
it's got a bench around it. And I'm sitting on one of the benches, and James is sitting next to me. My partner's sitting next to me. It's like 1:30 in the morning. I'm trying to wrap things up, and
Uh-huh.
I look over toward the cemetery gates, and a Star Wars stormtrooper walks through the gates at
Are
2 o'clock in the morning. And I went, James, am I really tired, or is that a stormtrooper? And he goes, that's my brother. He had a Knights of Columbus Star Wars reenactment thing tonight. He said he was going to stop by, but I thought he
You're
was
like,
coming.
Dan, I need to
So,
stop doing this.
you just have these dumb things happen. You just look up and, oh, I'd like
What
to
a
see a
great start. It's like, thank God I'm sitting down, right? It's like,
yeah, I'm like, whoa, I've been doing this way too long.
I'm telling you, yeah, that's like, what happened to the Victorian gentleman or the lady in the big
Yeah,
skirt? Now I'm starting to see
yeah, what was in that
stormtroopers.
coffee.
I'm telling you that, yeah, talk about
That was
taking a double take. Like,
that was hilarious. That
I
was
bet,
just
I bet.
hilarious.
Especially like the timing, I'm sure was impeccable. Like you said, you're tired. It's well early in the morning or late, I imagine, and it's like, okay, this is
Let's wrap it up. And you look over, and here comes this, and you're going, no,
that is such a fantastic story.
just really no.
No, this is like that's a pretty solid looking apparition there.
Yeah, I do not need this tonight.
It's like, oh, it's
It was
like,
pretty
oh my
funny.
God.
It was pretty funny. We were in another cemetery. James is a big guy,
Okay.
and we're walking, and I don't know. I wandered off as I'd have a tendency to do a little bit, not too far from him, but I was wandering, and all of a sudden, half of him disappears. And I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, what happened? He goes, I don't know. I fell in some hole. I'm like, are you okay? Are
Okay.
you okay? He goes, I'm fine. I'm fine. Well, we're all laughing so hard. We're having a hard time getting him out. And he's a big guy. We
Uh-huh.
finally get him out, and he'd fallen into the remains of an outhouse.
On remains of a what?
An outhouse.
Oh my God, you're kidding.
It was all dried up, so it had to be from like the 1800s,
Oh my
19.
God, but still. Oh, that's wrong. That's just wrong.
It was hilarious.
That's wrong. Oh,
And I'm like,
well,
we've had team members. You see something and you run and you don't think, and you're falling over tombstones. You trip over tombstones. You
uh-huh.
run into trees.
Oh yeah.
This particular cemetery is filled with what's the trees with the acorn? It's oak trees.
Yeah, pines. Pine trees?
Acorns.
Oh, the acorns. No, I'm thinking of I know what you're
Oak
talking about.
trees.
Don't worry. I'm having the
Aren't they
dead
oak
zone
trees?
moment myself.
Anyway, it's like a forest in there,
Okay.
and there's a bazillion squirrels
Oh God.
everywhere. Black squirrels, gray squirrels, brown squirrel, everywhere. And we're in there hunting one day, and I like to go in when it's still a little daylight because I want to get my
Uh-huh.
bearings and walk around and get things set up.
Okay.
And we're standing. The whole team is standing like we can't everywhere in there. You're basically staying under a tree.
Uh-huh.
These acorns kept on like bouncing off of us, and we look up, and there's squirrels up there with these acorns going banzai,
Oh,
and
you're kidding.
they're like kamikaze us.
Oh, you're kidding. And
Like,
you're like, what is this?
well, really, you know.
Yeah,
And
you always think of the squirrels as being cute little like rodents, like
now they were bonsaiing us with pine cones and acorn. It was really cute. And
oh my God.
every October, I do a cemetery talk in there, ghost stories in the cemetery, and we do it on a Saturday night in October.
Oh,
And
that's
not last year, but the year before, we had this bright full moon, big harvest moon,
wow.
and we had bats. There's You can see the bats in front of the moon,
Wow.
and I'm
Talk
like,
about
oh,
atmospheric.
this is perfect.
Yes,
Chris, I'm ducking.
absolutely.
I'm like, if you move, they will come after you. They go by sonar. If you stand,
So
why
everybody
does
must have
everybody
been
run
like,
when you see a bat? It only makes them come after you because you're moving.
don't twitch.
Crouch down, sit perfectly still, and they fly around you.
Some people I'm sure must have not have been happy campers for that. They must have been
Well, they weren't coming down that low because we had tiki torches going, we had
right
fires,
with a light.
so they weren't coming down that low. But people were still looking because you could see them.
But that must have been great. What that's fantastic as a matter of
And I'm
fact.
like, look at it this way, people, they're keeping down the bugs.
Yes, that's what they're there for.
That's why you're not getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. Thank those wonderful little creatures.
Yes, absolutely.
You know,
They've
so
gotten a bad rap when they're really
yeah, we actually
necessary.
caught a full body apparition um,
Now
during one of the talks.
you saw a full body apparition?
No, we caught one on camera.
Oh, you're
Um,
kidding.
no, my partner Kim, she was, I'm doing the talk, and she's taking pictures
Okay.
of the talk, and and she's snapping some pictures of some of the tombstones that are by
Uh-huh.
there. And when it was over, her and I went up to a couple other people I know, a couple friends of mine. We went up to this little restaurant in town
Uh-huh.
to grab, something, a coffee and or a drink or gets, something light to eat. And
Right.
she's going through her pictures, and she goes, "Wow, look at that orb!" And she turns her phone around, she hands it to me. I went, "So you see the orb, but you missed the full body apparition standing next to it?" And she's like, "What?" And she grabs the phone. She was like obsessed with that thing.
And what was it? What was it? I mean, what did it look like?
It's it's on our Facebook page, Shadow Stalkers Paranormal.
Okay.
It looks like a man with like long white hair. You can make out like where his face would be, and you can see that he's wearing, pants. It looks like a vest, and it looks like he's wearing some kind of like smoking jacket or
Mm-hmm.
long kind of coat because it's like billowing out alongside of him.
Wow.
yeah, so I had her send it to me, and I'm looking around so I could figure out where it was taken. And the next morning, I went back with a couple people from the historical side because we wanted to make sure like all the garbage, make sure there wasn't any garbage and
Mm-hmm.
everything. And I looked at where it was taken, and there
Okay.
was nothing there that could have caused it. Like
Right. You went back there just to check to make sure that.
just to check, okay, is there like because there's a lot of tombstones in there that are obelisks
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and stuff like that. And like, okay, did we catch one of those? Did the flash catch a tree branch?
Right. So
You know,
yeah, you
the
eliminated
leaves
all
were
these
still in full bloom.
explanations for it.
Yeah, I was trying to debunk it, and I couldn't debunk it.
That
And
is.
coincidentally, it was right next to the obelisk of the original owner of that house's. It was his brother.
I was about to ask you, was there any graves around it that could? That's interesting.
Gilbert's brother was right by it,
Okay.
but I don't know if it looked like it was that era. But I mean, there's so many people from that era buried.
Sure.
It could have been anyone. The original owner Gilbert and his wife, they're not buried there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Their bodies were disinterred
And what, they
in the
moved their
early
bodies somewhere
1900s
else?
by court order by his daughter, and they they were dug up in the middle of the night. The gravedigger was paid $50. He normally gets paid 5.
Wow.
They pulled Gilbert's casket out. It fell open. He looked like he died yesterday.
Oh, you're kidding.
Um, they pulled his wife Abigail's out. Hers open. She was a bag of bones. James hadn't even had his mother involved.
Wow.
So the coffins were encased in tin. They were sent by train out to Adrian.
I was
They
going to
were
ask you, why did she disinter them to have them?
sent out to a family plot. But why didn't she take her brother and his family, their family?
Wow.
So they were sent out to Adrian. They were buried in the city cemetery in Adrian. Well, Adrian started to get big.
Mm-hmm.
And so they disinterred all the bodies and moved them to a different
Oh my.
cemetery.
Okay.
So they were originally buried in Oakwood Cemetery in New Baltimore.
Okay.
Now they're buried in Oakwood Cemetery in Adrian.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that's, and see, that's what I mean, that sometimes people back then, depending, really cared about what happened with your grave or being buried in
Yes.
consecrated crown and things like that. Uh,
Yes. They really cared. Like James's daughter, Mabel, um, she was buried in a glass coffin, was
mm,
rumored to be a glass coffin. Her tombstone looks like a bed. It's got like a headboard with her
okay.
name on it. It's got a round circle with a dove on the back.
Okay.
And then there's like little sideboards and there's a little footboard. And James had Lily of the Valley planted in it, which still blooms, by the way.
Okay.
And some people say it's because he thought his daughter was poisoned
Oh, wow.
because she was an heiress. Because when her grandfather Gilbert died, she inherited $25,000. She was only 9, so her dad would have been taking care of that money.
And how old was she when she passed away?
20.
20.
And she'd been married 3
Oh,
months.
so this is the one that was buried 3 months. Yeah,
Married 3 months, yeah.
and
And
that's,
she dies of an illness in a week.
yeah, it
She
could be.
died on a Thursday. She's buried on a Sunday.
Yeah, that could happen, as far as the poisoning and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but you got to figure it was 1881,
Okay.
and I haven't done enough research over in Pawpaw to see what was going through. There could have been scarlet fever. It could have been,
Yeah, also. Yeah, if you
you
had
know,
those fevers.
it could have been something that, is easily treatable today, but back
Sure.
then, it was the 1880s.
Yeah. Because and people
So,
don't realize that back then. I mean, you realize it sometimes when you go to the cemeteries and you look at the dates. Yeah, there was these people that did live to be the 60s, 70s, and 80s, but the average lifespan, I think, was like 50 or something like that.
yeah.
If you were
Yeah,
50, you were really old.
you were really old.
Uh,
Yeah, and James actually had rheumatoid arthritis, like his dad did. He was in a wheelchair at the
oh,
end,
wow.
and he died of a accidental fall down the stairs out of his wheelchair.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, talk about, yeah, and talk about tragic families, right?
it has a very tragic history, and the funny thing about that family, for as prominent as they were, and
Mm-hmm.
they were very prominent, there's no paper trail.
Interesting.
There's a few probate files.
And that's it, huh?
That's it. Like there is not a paper. There is. I haven't found it yet, and I've been researching them for 15 years, 20 years.
Isn't that because see, and that's really unusual because usually prominent families did leave a paper trail because they had transactions, different sales. They, sometimes if you were nobody, it was easier sometimes not to leave a paper trail because
Right.
nothing really
But
happened.
there's fires, there's floods,
Yeah.
there's records are destroyed. Oh, we don't need these anymore.
Mm-hmm. But
But
usually, if you were some type of prominent family, you did enough things that there's usually
I mean, they,
something.
they did some good things. Like Gilbert, especially, he donated land to the German community in the area, in the
Okay.
town,
Okay.
for a church. His only condition was that it be built to look like a New England church because he was from Massachusetts. That
Okay.
church is still being used today.
Wow.
When he died, he left money to build a school.
Okay, so he was a philanthropist then, and
And his son James fought it all the way up to the Michigan Supreme Court and lost.
wow.
And they built the Hathaway Institute, which was a three-story school. It had an indoor pool. It operated till 1957.
Wow.
Um, it was the first student teaching school in the state of Michigan.
So what happened? His son just didn't want any of that money to be
His son
donated?
was not a nice person. From what everything I can find about his son, I found one old newspaper article that said that when he died, no one mourned his death.
Yep, that's a nice way of saying he was a
Nice epitaph, isn't it?
yeah, that that
Yeah.
he
So
was a jerk.
it's
That's
sure, yeah.
that's it. I'm being nice about it. Yeah, when you start yeah, when they
His
start
attitude
couching it like that,
really
yeah.
didn't improve with death either. So
Well,
you know,
sometimes that's yeah, it happens even among the best families where, you know,
it is what it is. It just adds another layer of interesting.
sure.
And what's so fascinating is that that family hasn't lived in that area since, well, James died. Evelyn sold the house a few years later. So they haven't really lived in the area since 1900,
Okay. So
and they're still talked about today.
isn't that incredible? That's what I'm
That's the
saying. That
legacy. They're
they
still talked about today.
they
People still speculate
of course.
about that family.
Well,
And yet the founder of the town family, people don't mention him, people don't speculate about him.
but I think it's also what you said that when you have a family that all these tragedies befall them after a while, people start thinking because that's what people don't realize. Back then, it was normal to die in the house and to have wakes
Right,
in the house. This was the
right.
norm. Okay, not like now
Yeah,
where people die in hospitals and things like that. So that in and of itself doesn't mean you're going to have a ghost because that people were born in their house or people died in the house.
yeah. Mabel actually died across state, but she was brought back. But yeah, people died in their houses. They had wakes in their houses.
Mm-hmm.
Someone sat with the body.
Right. And that was the
Um,
norm. There was nothing I want to say spooky or this was just what it
no,
was.
it's just what it was. There weren't like the funeral homes that there
Mm-hmm.
are today. In fact, most caskets were purchased from furniture stores.
Right. Yes. Yes.
I mean, you could have a guy that ran a furniture store, was an undertaker,
Yeah,
was,
I've seen newspaper advertisements. The first time I saw it, I said, "Wait a minute! They're having a wake. They were having a wake at the furniture store." And for me, I was like, "The furniture store?" And this was a little town in Missouri, and I was like, And then I did a little bit more research. Like, yeah, this did happen where, hey, you had
Yeah.
to make money whichever way you could.
And
So
that's how you did it, you know?
yes, and that's exactly how they did it. Well, Debbie,
Yeah, so his history is interesting
oh, of
when it
course. And you know what? I tell everybody, everybody is always thinking of the good old days, and you'd be surprised what people got up to in those days. It's just that a lot of it never came to light, or if you had a little bit of prominence, you could, or you had a little bit of money, you could hush things up.
right, and I think that a lot of times some ghost hunting teams forget to look at the history.
Oh yeah, yes,
You always got to look at the history.
of course. And you'd be
And not
surprised
just of
sometimes what you
that
find there.
place, but how many times is it nothing really happened at that particular place, but the area around it is a nightmare.
Yes, yes,
I mean, especially if you get, more toward the south where, maybe nothing happened on your house where your house is,
mm-hmm.
but you could be living less than a mile away from a battlefield, a Civil War
Yes,
battlefield, or,
exactly, exactly.
something like that. And
And that
all
bleeds
that,
over. People
yeah,
people don't realize that in a lot of, despite what they say, in a lot of these battlefields, a lot of soldiers, regardless of whether they were Union or Confederate, were basically left where they fell.
that's where they fell, right?
Because number one, the body decomposed very quickly. Number two, we're in war. Sometimes there was no personnel to come and retrieve bodies and take them off the field.
Exactly. So, I've also heard, especially out east,
Mm-hmm.
um, some of the Civil War hospitals were torn down,
Right.
and the foundation was, nice limestone, and the foundation was taken out and used for other buildings.
Yes, they would repurpose those materials.
They would repurpose it, and people in those buildings report seeing, Civil War soldiers walking through the halls of this brand new building. Well, yeah, it's all that residual energy from
Yeah.
the stones out of that foundation. It's
I
not that
mean,
the place is haunted.
yes.
People are so quick to think that when they see a full body apparition walk out of one room, not even acknowledge you and walk through a wall, that it's a ghost. No, it's residual. When that person
Right.
lived there, was there was a door where it went through a wall.
Well, the thing is also that people don't realize, especially war of all things. I mean, talk about intense human emotion, fear, a lot of fear,
All that energy
pain,
just gets,
anger.
yeah,
Uh,
all that energy just gets compacted and compacted. And
yes, in a very
uh,
short period of time. But sometimes you have people, like you said, that live like a really long time in a certain place, and that blends
yeah,
into the fabric of the place. But when you're talking really intense emotions, like you would think of as in wartime, you can really imbue that place in a really short amount of
yeah,
time.
I often wonder how. I mean, I'd like to go to one just to find out. You know how, like down at Gettysburg and some of the other battlefields,
Mm-hmm.
they do reenactments.
Yes.
Yes. I'd like to know how that affects any spirits or any residual energies there. I've never been to a reenactment of.
I've been to Gettysburg 3 times. Yeah, I've been to Gettysburg 3 times. I've never been there when they're doing reenactments. Um, I would think, despite I think what I don't know, sometimes it makes you think that it would stir things up, but it's hard to say how much of that what's left there is really residual
Or
versus.
how much is, because you always hear reports, especially like at Gettysburg, of, full bodies and this and that, but it just seems residual. A lot of it seems
Mm-hmm.
residual.
Right, exactly.
And I wonder if those reenactments kind of
Well,
spur that residual energy on a little bit.
I'm sure
Like,
it does because I think just because of the energy, because let's face it, well, it says it's a reenactment. It's almost like,
but you have to think that if there's are any spirits there, they don't know what a reenactment is. They think the
oh
war's
no, of
back on.
course not. And I think that accounts also why some reenactors have had these very intelligent type of encounters with spirits because
Right.
at some
Because to
point,
them, we're still at war.
Right, exactly. And especially things like on anniversary dates, like I believe in Gettysburg it was in July, things like that, yeah. I think timing has sometimes has a lot to do with it. I think also what you is that reenactor, are they psychic? Are they sensitive? Do they have something that draws a spirit that otherwise might be like, oh, forget it. It's those guys shooting their guns off again.
Yeah.
To even if
Or is
sometimes I
it,
think if that person looks like somebody they knew, I
yeah,
think
but think how authentic it is, you know?
yes,
The uniforms, the cannons, the muskets,
yes.
and the spirit has no idea that this is just,
I guess your question is this causing a lot of spiritual turbulence in a place where you would think, okay, one, there's either obviously going to be residual energy, or two, if there's intelligent hauntings, well, if you go out there, yeah, the town is there, but there's just fields and fields.
right.
Are they just there?
So is that like pumping more energy into that area? It has to be.
I would think it would. I would think it would. I kind of feel sorry, to be honest with you, if there's. I'm going to tell you, I had an, and I'm because and see this is what we talk about expectations of when you go there. I remember one of the first times I went to Gettysburg, we rolled into town like really late at night. We had been driving all day, and we stayed at a small hotel that's right across the street from the Union Cemetery. And we called ahead and we said, "Hey, we're going to get there late." And we got there, got the key, went to our room, and it was like those typical. I want to say that hotel or motel was built like in the 50s or 60s, something like that. One story, and it's that that small basic room with a bathroom. And we kind of like threw our stuff there. We were like, and my my boyfriend, by the way, he was a cop and he was very analytical, and he poo-pooed all of this stuff a lot,
Right.
a
I'm married
lot.
to an engineer.
Okay, he poo-pooed it like. But anyway, so we go in there, and like I said, I passed out. I was like, and I remember he kind of tried to wake me up in the middle of the night, saying, "I'm hearing some noise in the bathroom." So I'm thinking he's, to put it bluntly, screwing with me, you know,
Right.
telling me he's hearing something in the bathroom, like, yeah, in the bathroom, right?
Right. Sure. Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I had a dream, and I know, and I that what was there, and I don't know if that was in the thing in the bathroom. I'll tell you what happened. It was a maid. It was not a soldier. It was a maid. Okay, and like I want to say she was modern. She was like the 1980s. Okay,
I could see that though.
yeah. She came into the room. She's checking us out. So anyway, the next morning, I wake up and he's like all, and I'm going, "What's wrong with you?" He goes, "You didn't believe me." I go, "What do you mean I didn't believe?" He goes, "There was something." He says he swears, and that's what I'm saying. From him, coming from him, I believe it. He said he would hear some
Right.
type of water gurgling or something going on in the bathroom of the room. So I said, "Well," and he says, "Oh, wait a minute." So I see him walk out, and he goes to the office, and the guy tells him, "Yeah, that's one of our most haunted rooms." But it was like he comes back and he goes, "The one time I tell you that I'm hearing something and you don't believe me." I go, "Oh my God, can you imagine? First of all, I'm tired, but you're telling me you're hearing something in the bathroom. I thought you were playing with me. I thought you were trying to make fun of me by
Right.
telling me you're hearing a strange gurgling sound in the bathroom of all places."
Right.
And it's like, that's what I'm saying. My point is being that you go to these places like Gettysburg, which all you think of is that what you're going to see is soldiers, soldiers, soldiers. And there's a bunch of
Yeah.
people that live their lives there,
Yeah. It's
Civil War
perception,
time and after that had nothing to do with Gettysburg, with a war or anything like that.
Yeah, that's because a lot of times, I don't like to know too much about what's going on because I don't want to have those preconceived,
Uh, yeah,
and everyone's like, I can't believe you haven't been to Gettysburg. I'm like, it's been done to death,
yes, it has, it has, it
you know.
has.
Well, don't you want to go to Waverly again? Done to death.
Yes, that's the thing. That it's
I don't want to go to those places. I want to go to what I call virgin hunts.
oh, they see, yeah, person after my own heart. Absolutely, absolutely. Because
I've
after a
got a
while,
great
when you
one.
go to
I've
these
got a,
places,
yeah, I have one in Iowa. I'm dying to get out for.
In Iowa.
Iowa of all places. Yeah,
Well,
Iowa.
let me tell you, I'm a big believer that some places, these places that have this, like you said, that they've got a gazillion people tramping through it because it's gotten that reputation. That after a while, I'm not gonna say all the time because without being there,
But
but
after a while, it's just like,
if there was something ever even there, maybe somebody already moved it on. you
well,
know?
not even just that, but how much more do you expect to learn?
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
nothing more there from a paranormal researcher's perspective
Yes,
to be
yes,
learned,
exactly.
really.
And I mean, I know, let's say, for example, some place like Waverly. Um, I mean, there's so many people that go through there that I think that if you ever really wanted to do a meaningful investigation,
You have
it
to
would
be one
take
of the shows.
it would take a little bit time, nobody there, because I'm
You have
sure
to
that there is
do like,
stuff.
you have to do like a lockdown. You got to be in there 3, 4 days.
Yes, exactly. Because I'm gonna go with the theory of what we were talking about originally, that probably whatever is there probably makes itself scarce while all those people are tramping around.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like, oh, really, another one?
Yes, exactly. Oh,
Oh,
here they come again. It's like, yeah.
or if they, see someone who's really jumpy, maybe they're going to have fun with them,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it's like, I don't want to go to those places. I have no
Yes.
interest. They've been done to death. I want the places no one has done.
Yes. And the truth is that, a lot of these places they have these apparitions that they say, oh, it's this person or this legend, which sometimes is not accurate at all. But chances are that 9 times out of 10, you will never truly know because, let's say, for example, a place like that. Yeah, they kept records, but a lot of times, a lot of people went back and forth through there that there were no records of. It depends. There's a lot of
Yeah,
reasons sometimes
like,
why a spirit will return to a location and not necessarily because it died there.
right. I mean, like a lot of times, if you have someone that sees an apparition in a place, and then, and it's happened, before, they're looking through photo albums or something. Oh my God, that's who I saw.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, we have some validation, we have some
Yes.
documentation,
Yes.
that's okay.
But that doesn't happen all the time. That doesn't mean it, you know,
It doesn't mean that's not who it is, but it just doesn't happen
yeah.
all the time,
Uh-huh.
So,
Well, because I've done some research. It's like, when they used to have those big lunatic asylums, all these uh, people don't realize that besides the fact that a lot of times these people, the families wouldn't come visit, back, like a lot of them were started like around the time of the Civil War, after the Civil War. People don't realize that, especially if there was no family to claim the bodies, they would give the bodies over to the universities
yeah,
for anatomical
for
research.
study, right.
People don't realize that a lot of people
Yeah,
sometimes
it's
went through
just,
these, yeah,
yeah, but I mean,
that there's very
there's a,
scarce records sometimes of really who was there throughout the
yeah,
years.
exactly. Yeah, there's a couple places I'd like to, you know, go do that haven't been done. And
Yes. So well, let me ask you, are you working on any new project, any new writing project?
I am, but I'm actually working on a mystery right now. I'm not working
Okay.
on a paranormal project right now.
Okay.
Um, the last one I did was Haunted Anchor Bay, Michigan, and that
Yes.
came out in October.
Okay.
So I'm actually working on a mystery right now,
Okay.
starting a mystery right now, and taking a break. I mean,
Yes.
I'll still investigate, but only certain things.
Yeah.
And
I know what you mean. It's like there's only so
there's
much
like
you can do.
it's only so much I can do, and I just don't think there's that much that can surprise me anymore. You know?
And it's almost like you're afraid. Well, I really don't want to find the thing that's going to surprise me at this point. It's like, forget
That's
it.
why I don't want to either.
Just leave me unsurprised.
because it would have to be something really
Right, that's
weird.
what I'm saying. It's like, do I really want to be surprised? Nah, I'll pass on
You
that.
know,
Thanks.
my favorite thing is when people go, "This is going to sound really weird." It's like, no, you don't understand. Weird is my normal.
Yes, exactly.
So if you hit me with normal, I won't recognize it.
Yeah,
That's all.
exactly. But still, at the same
So
time,
yeah, I mean, a couple little local things that I'm working on, and eventually I'll get out to Iowa to handle this
well,
one thing I want to investigate, and no one's ever done it. No one really knows about it, so
oh, so I'm not even gonna ask you what it's about or where it is or whatever. I don't want to ruin the.
it's like really good, and actually it's already out there, but no one knows it, which is
Okay,
what's so funny. It has to do with that one of the mystery one of the mysteries I wrote, the Four Horsemen,
okay,
Miss the Horseman. That's actually not too far from,
really,
yeah.
okay. Because everybody, when you think of Iowa, everybody thinks of the Villisca axe murders. It's like that's what the poor. Whenever
There's
you think
so
of
much more.
Iowa, haunted Iowa.
There's an awesome hobo cemetery out there.
Oh, you're kidding.
Where they still bury hobos, by the way.
Oh,
Yeah,
really? God,
yeah.
that would be so interesting.
I mean, remember, it's the Wild West. You
Yes, it
know,
is.
you
People
know.
don't, that's what I'm saying. People don't realize that back then, if
There's a
especially when it was a
there's a
frontiers
gypsum
town,
mine.
they had to
Yeah,
bury you somewhere. If you didn't have a family, especially if you had money or anything, they just like
yeah.
chuck them in there.
There's a gypsum mine that I had a cave in many years ago. There's still about two in there.
Wow.
They never got out.
And what happened? These were people that were going out there to work at this place, or just
Yeah, they were in the mine, and there was a cave
yes.
in, and they couldn't get two out.
Wow.
And so there's just a lot of cool places that
Yeah. See, that's the interesting stuff. That right
yeah,
there that you're
it's like,
describing.
what I want to do, if I could have my dream trip, it'd be jump in an RV and travel to all these little towns and just talk to the locals, find out their local legends,
Yes. Yes, and it's
find
exactly.
out the local folklore, and then just
Mm-hmm.
go dig in and see if I can find it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of stories out there like that are real of things that have happened that it's just
Yeah.
for some reason some places like you said get all this focus and all this attention and everybody knows about it. And I'm thinking to myself, God, there's so many places out there that are probably have more disturbing
So exciting.
events,
So
more to
exciting.
discover, and it's just because they're all looking in the wrong places and everybody just concentrates on these few places that get the notoriety.
Yeah, the penitentiaries and the old
Right.
asylums and
Yeah.
uh, you know all these places, when a lot of times if you just look in your own backyard,
Oh, yes. Yes.
you just look at the local folklore and
Mm-hmm.
legends of an area. Everything has a little grain of truth.
Well, you know what I found that a lot of these, like either see their frontiers town or sometimes even when they were having some type of project of building, you'd always get a lot of transients going to these places for work, like
Mhm.
laborers. And a lot of these people, they would die and they didn't have family. They didn't have nobody to ship them. And if the people around there, the community had to bury them somewhere, but it was like as cheap as possible. Like and sometimes they would, like you said, they would make unofficial graveyards. Like, okay, well, we'll just bury them there. In the meantime, we got to do something with them, But they didn't want to be put out.
What I
This was somebody they
understand,
didn't
there's
know.
there's there's still burials in this hobo cemetery,
Wow, that is
and they're
incredible.
hobos. I mean, they literally are hobos.
Did they have a hobo camp? Was it near a railroad or something, or what
I
happened?
have no idea where it is. I don't know. My friend lives out there, and she was telling me about.
Let me tell you something. A lot of interesting things went happened around railroads and
Oh
depots
yeah.
and lots.
Well, I'm having a cigarette.
Go ahead, have a cigarette. Oh my God, it's like it's all
So
good. But you know what? When we
yeah,
were
there was
talking
like,
about that there's a lot of I think that unexplored territory out there of all these places that have just they're unknown. But
I'm going to go up to Parachaney this summer, I think.
to where?
Pear Cheney. Have you never heard of Pear Cheney?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
And
it's in Upper Michigan. You only go in there during the day.
they have a lot of neat stuff around Michigan. I mean, it's pretty cold
We
up there
do have a
though.
lot of cool stuff.
It's
I
like,
gotta do a presentation on haunted Michigan
oh,
in
okay.
August, and I'm going on a little road trip. My partner and I are going to go on a little road trip, and
Yes. Let me tell you something. Those road trips are great.
I love road trips.
Yeah, you have a
I
good
just love
time.
road trips.
You have a really good time.
Yeah, we have some cool places. You know, Pear Cheney. I want to hit Pear Cheney. Um, there's a couple of haunted lighthouses I've heard of. I don't know how close I can get to them. I think some of them are open as museums now, and I want to hit a couple of those just to check them out. Not do an investigation, just
Yeah, right. No, I know exactly what you mean. Just to stroll through them and see what comes up
see what
or
comes
who.
up.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I want to do that, and my daughter and I are going to go out to Connecticut. I think this fall.
That's great. Well,
Yeah,
see, that's the thing because up there, that's
I got my daughter addicted to old cemeteries now. We took a road trip last.
let me tell you something. I do what I call cemetery runs, which
Mhm.
is when I do road trips, I go through especially some of these smaller rural cemeteries,
We have a we have a lot of those.
that you just
We have a
like,
lot of those where I live. It's a lot of
yeah, it's really
I'm taking my
interesting.
dog to the vet one day, and I happened to look
Mm-hmm.
over on top of this hill is this old cemetery, and I'm like almost running off the road, going, "Ooh,
Yes, it's like, I got, I know
note
what
to
you
self,
mean.
check that out." Yeah,
Yeah. Yes. Yes, and it's like those to me sometimes. I mean, the city cemeteries is where you get those really beautiful monuments and the mausoleums and things like that, especially from the Victorian age. But a lot of these smaller rural or sometimes family cemeteries, they're very interesting sometimes, what you find there.
they are. I mean, like the one in New Baltimore is, it's a small city cemetery, but it dates back. It holds our city founder.
Okay.
That city founder. I mean, they go back into the 1800s.
Exactly. And that,
And there's just I mean, that place is just spooky to begin with. You get all those trees and the big wrought iron fence,
yeah.
and
Isn't that,
you hear
it's
you,
atmospheric.
you hear acorns bouncing off all the tombstones when you're in there in the
It's like, yeah, let's
fall.
let's put this in a Tim Burton film quick.
Yeah, exactly. It's just naturally lends itself to creepiness because of all the trees and the shadows,
Yeah, of
and
course. It,
um,
I get it.
it's creepy to begin with, and it never disappoints
Oh, I'm
when,
sure.
when you
I
go
mean,
in there. There's something happens every single time, and we don't go in there anymore. They don't allow anyone there at night anymore. But
you know what? And that's a shame because that's one of the things that I hate to say that this thing with ghost hunting has brought on. That a lot of places,
well, it's
including
not just that, but
cemeteries, they're become,
vandalism.
yeah, they're now they close their gates and they don't want anybody in there and or they chase people off and it's like, I'm
Yeah, we
not
used to be
gonna.
able to go in there all the time. We'd be in there 1, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right. And
We always, we're responsible. We always stopped. At the police department, we said we're going in.
right.
We're gonna be in there from this time to this time. You're welcome to have someone come by. We gave them our driver's license to copy, what cars we were in, our license
Right.
plate numbers. We were always really responsible
Right.
about that. And I've learned over the years that if you want to learn where the really good places are to go hunt, you talk to the midnight cop
Oh yes.
on patrol
Absolutely.
because they
Abs.
know afternoon and midnight, they know all the places.
Yes, of course, because they get I remember this was back in I want to say like 1999. Um there was this cop. He had just started. He was like fresh out of the academy. So when they make him ride two, with
Yeah,
like an
the
instructor, like a
partner. Yeah,
trainer kind of deal. So of course he's that you said that overnight bad shift kind of deal. So he says that, and I know the place exactly. It's a Catholic high school, which the grounds are right adjacent. They almost share to a Catholic hospital that sits right on the bay. So it's almost like you don't know where one starts or the other. They're right there. And his friend, the instructor, goes, "Well, let's just roll through the parking lot real slow and whatever. We'll see." And he says that when they're coming round, he says next to this playing field, like where they play soccer and stuff, there's some bushes, and he sees somebody move. Like, and he tells the guy, "I thought you told me there was no security out here." Because he says that he didn't really react because he was thinking it was a security guard or something.
Right.
And the instructor goes, "There is no security out here. That's why I told you to come through." He goes, "But there is. I just saw somebody that there's somebody right there behind that bush. Somebody moved right there. Like I saw the figure distinctly." Like I telling him, there is no security out here. Like I know this place. There's no security out here. Later on, he finds out that there was, and part of it I don't want to say was urban myth, but then like in all urban myths, there's always that little
There's a
seed
grain
of
of
truth.
truth. Right.
In one version, there was one girl. The girl is supposedly she was a high school student that committed suicide. One of two things: either accidentally through an OD or suicide intentionally because of a romance that went south. And he didn't know absolutely anything about it. And she's always cited in that area of the field and right where he had seen her. And coming from any other person, I would have put it in the urban myth pile. But coming from the person that told me and that he didn't know about the story and he thought it was something else, I believe him. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of things that you find sometimes when you least expect it from the people that are not looking to have the encounter, which their validity is like 100%.
Right. Because you can tell just by looking at them that they've never had an experience before.
No,
And they just don't even know how to process that because a
right.
lot of times their entire belief system has just been shaken to the core and
Oh,
they
yes.
just don't know what to do with that yet.
Yes. And some of them, as a matter of fact, it's like they'll either go into denial or, like you said, their version of reality just went like on them.
Yeah, it was just turned upside down and now they got to process it
It's
and they just,
like, yeah, and it's like, and if they're really truthful, they go through a checklist of possibilities and they go, no, it really wasn't that. I wish it was, but it's not this, it's not this, it's not this. And what I'm left with is, God, that was a paranormal, a ghost. What was that? And yeah, it's incredible. Those I see personally. I love those stories. As far as um, like you said, this even though that place had that reputation for I want to say maybe 30 or 40 years. He had absolutely no idea about it. Most of the people that knew about it is like if you were a student and went to that high school, but
right.
it was not really a well-known urban myth, not really. And
Yeah, I've run into a couple of those where something's happened and I've mentioned it to somebody and they've gone, "Oh yeah, I remember back in the day, I
yeah.
remember hearing,
Mhm.
that this happened there."
And
And
yeah,
someone,
but it's not common
and then
knowledge.
it's just not common knowledge. Like no one talks about it because it was just a thing that happened and
That was it.
life goes on, and I don't know, the things that creep me out are ghost animals.
Yes. People don't some people
I
believe in
mean,
them.
not in someone's house, I can deal with those, but like I was a lot younger and about my friend, and we're heading to meet some other friends. And out of nowhere, there's this bloodhound, and I know I hit it with my car.
Wow.
I know it, and it just really upset me.
Okay.
And I
And
stopped, and I couldn't see it, and there was a lot of traffic. We got to the restaurant. I was really upset. I told a couple of the guys
yeah.
who, if they went back and they looked, and they said, "There's nothing there. There's not even blood, and there's nothing. There's no blood on your car,
Yeah, and it would have let
no
a
dent.
big
There's
dog like
nothing." So
that.
it was
Isn't
those
that
kind of
incredible?
things. Kind
Wow.
of just like
That you
you're not
think,
expecting it,
right, exactly. And as
and
far
it's
as you
so
were
fast.
concerned,
It's
this
like
was a real animal that you even sent somebody to check back because you were feeling so bad about it.
right. and there was nothing there. There
God.
was like no dent on my car. There was no blood. There was like
And isn't
nothing.
yeah, and you know what? I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people that do that the ghost animal thing, they relate to it as in a pet. You know, they either hear it or they feel it on their bed or they even see it.
So I've had that happen with my own pets that have passed. Yeah,
Right. But that thing that you describe where you see this animal that looks so real and you actually think you hit it. I've heard of that happening, but like I said, most ghost animals is because people describing
their pet.
their pet,
Right.
their pet. And you know,
This just out of the blue, random. The dog must have been hit there years ago, and
right. Exactly.
and I'm fascinated by the ghost hitchhikers, like
Oh
Resurrection Mary, and
yes. A lot of those stories.
a lot of those stories. I'm fascinated by those.
Well, you know what? And I mean, I know that back like especially in the 70s. I mean, people have hitchhiked all along, but you remember in the 70s, hitchhiking became like in the 60s and 70s was like the way to get around was hitchhike your way wherever.
Yeah, I've never done it, but yeah.
No, but then when you read, especially a lot of the murders that occurred, God, hitchhikers were always
Or the
high on
people
the
that got hit by
list.
cars, or
Yes, it was like there was a lot of victims of foul play, or some of them they've never been found, but or they've turned out to get be the victims of serial killers because opportunity.
opportunity, right?
So, and even though a lot of these hitchhiking stories are, they're usually taken for a live person, and then it turns out, they're not real, or later on that person that gives the ride finds out that there is no such living person, or that person died.
But it's real. Like when it happens,
Yes,
it's real to them.
yes, yes, yeah, yes. I've heard of the version where she disappears from the car while they're driving. Like, in other words, if she sits in the back, all of a sudden they turn, she's gone. Then there's the one I've heard where she kind of like even turns skeletal while they're driving. And then there's the version where they kind of drop her off either at a cemetery or at a house, and they're still thinking it's a real person,
And there's no one there.
and there's no one there, or later on they find out that this person that they describe was dead, has been dead for a long time. So there's always
Yeah.
some version of that.
But I
Um,
always wonder too, I some of them residual, or is it an intelligent spirit?
well, and I almost want to say that thing about, well, depending also on the circumstances. Let's say if you're
Yeah.
able to validate who are we talking about here.
Yeah.
It's almost like I think that's also the same thing as the human need of I want to go home. If something bad happened to you, let's say, it's like that wanting I want to go home, like where
Right.
I'm safe at home, and maybe
Right.
you're stuck on that loop. It's intelligent, but always kind of stuck in that loop of wanting to go
Replaying
home.
that loop because they're always looking to get home.
Yeah. Yes.
I just wonder if they've like they couldn't have crossed. I mean,
Well, think about it. There's how when something happens, especially let's say we're talking somebody young that maybe felt cheated because they died so young. They kind of feel cheated, and you know how you almost think, oh, if I would have done this instead of that, if I would have gone home, if I would have,
right.
so they always want to undo that last incident or decision they made that
And
led
they
to their
can't.
death.
It's really sad. It's tragic,
It
really.
is. It is very tragic. It is very tragic if you're talking about an intelligent haunting. Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's very tragic. But I mean, I had a hitchhiker. It was on that same road as that house. And when I was going to my friends, I always took the back road because I got to drive by the house.
Okay.
And I'd be heading east, and I'd be on the road. And right when I got to the cemetery, I'd go by the cemetery, and I'd look at my rearview mirror, and there'd be a gentleman sitting back there, probably from the 30s or 40s. He was portly, And he had a
Wow.
very nice suit and a very nice brocade vest and his little pocket watch and
Mm-hmm.
his hat and
Okay.
very
The
very
handlebar mustache?
waxed mustache, not
Uh-huh.
handlebar, but
Yeah,
very
okay.
well. He's very well kept, and he'd have his cane with his little, and he'd just be sitting in the back seat. And then when I got past the half of my house, he'd disappear.
Really?
And then I'd pick him back up. I was coming home. I'd pick him back up at the half of my house, and when I got past the cemetery, he'd be gone.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And it wasn't every time.
Could he have mistaken you for a chauffeur, you think?
I don't know, but it got to be like a running joke. I'd look at my rearview mirror and I'd see him, and I'd go, "I'll drop you off at the usual place because there's a stop sign right at the halfway house." And I'd stop, and when I went to the stop sign, sure enough, he'd be gone.
Right, because
And
it
then I don't
also
know what
makes
happened
makes
to the
you think
cemetery
like
that
he
he
was
had
doing
to
his
go.
routine, his
Yeah, it was like he was going to visit someone or something. I don't know, and it wasn't all the time. It was just every once in a while.
I think that is so neat.
Every once in a while, he'd have a cigar because I'd smell a cigar.
Okay. So
You
yeah,
know,
it's see stuff
he's
like that I want to say doesn't worry me so much because it almost seems like he's kind of like doing his thing.
yeah, he's just kind of like in New Baltimore when I'm there at night sometimes, and there's a really good restaurant there, and I'll meet one of my friends, and I'll be walking back to my car, and the city's so safe. It's like
Okay.
it was voted one of the top 10 safest cities in Michigan.
Wow.
It's like just so safe, and I'll be walking up the sidewalk to get back to my car, and people are in the summer. People are walking everywhere. Everyone's
Uh-huh.
out walking their dogs, and just walking through town, and they don't realize how many people are actually walking with them that I see.
Yeah.
And there's this one man, I see him all the time, not all the time, but 80% of the time. And he's wearing, a still top, hat, Victorian,
Okay.
and he's just strolling down the sidewalk, and he knows I can see him.
Oh.
And he never says a word. Like when I'm going up, he's usually coming the opposite way, and he'll step back and he'll just tip his hat to me and acknowledge
Uh-huh.
me. I'll nod to him. He never says a word, never communicates, just a little acknowledgement.
Okay. Like we're
And
here. I see you,
yeah,
you see me. It's all good.
yeah, yeah, got you,
And
And
that's the thing and that's another thing like what you're describing like the that time where let's say top hats were used. People used to walk a lot back then. It
oh,
was a
yeah.
norm. People used to either walk to do things or a stroll. This was like the entertainment. You would take a stroll.
I think I get the impression that he was out having a cigar before he
Mm-hmm.
went to bed or a pipe, and his wife probably didn't want him to have it in the house. And
Right.
I think he just went for a little leisurely evening stroll, and
Yeah.
um,
This was see this
it was like a
was
social thing. It was an event,
yes. I think
and I just think it's so cute because we just totally acknowledged it. And
and
it's been going on for years, and we've never spoken a word between us. And he just,
yeah, but it's almost like he's doing his thing. You don't get that feeling of angst or anger or
yeah, he's
unhappiness or
perfectly at
desperation.
peace.
He's
No,
just doing his thing.
he's totally at peace. He's going for a relaxing evening stroll before he turns in for the night. And
Yeah, for all you know, this was for him that one ritual, that people do at the end of their day
yeah,
that that was their thing. This is what made them feel good. Like, okay, the day is done.
yeah, I just get the feeling that, he would go out because, people are out walking, and,
Mm-hmm.
maybe after dinner he went to one of the bars and had a couple drinks with his friends,
Yeah.
or, and maybe he was just like strolling through town, having a cigar and walking home. And
Well,
he
you
was,
know what? And that's another
he
thing, Deb.
seems very relaxed. He's very at peace. He's just,
Well, you know what? And it's sometimes I think we forget about it that back then life was more leisurely in the sense of time.
hmm
Because nowadays everybody's multitasking. and doing three things at the same time, and then while you're doing them, you're thinking of the things that you need to do either later that day or the next day,
And they don't do those anymore.
and
They
your
don't do
phone
that.
rings, and but back then that was like there was no phones, or maybe, but it's not the same as now. Definitely no emails.
But it's just little things like that I think I appreciate more now
Yeah, of course, of
than I
course,
did at when I was younger.
of course.
I just appreciate those little, and not that they haven't gotten me once or twice, because, you know, they have. I was in a Barnes and Noble one day, and it was pretty busy. And I'm at the bargain
Mm-hmm.
things and this off to the side of the store. And I always hit the bargain things first.
Right.
You never know what you're going to find. You find little
Sure.
gems. So I'm walking down, and there's this elderly man next to me, and he goes, "Oh, you need to read that book." And he pointed to this book, and I picked it up and go, "Why?" And he goes, "Oh, it's very good." Because I won't spoil it for you, but he started to like
And
tell
you're,
me about that. And I'm talking to him, we're having this big conversation,
oh
and
God.
all of a sudden I look around and I realize people are looking at me, and I went, "You're a
Oh.
ghost, aren't you?" And he went, "Yep, I sure am." And I went, "Oh."
Who's that lady having that great conversation with?
Stay away from that crazy lady over
Yeah,
there.
she's talking to thin air. Can you imagine? Boy, he must have looked really solid.
He did. But a lot of them, like sometimes when I'm talking to people I don't know,
Uh huh.
I have to reach out, I'll touch them
Right.
because I'm not sure. So
Just in
most
case.
of the time I can tell, but sometimes I can't. Like that, I should have reached out and touched them. That's when I learned that.
Well, let's
If
face it,
you're
you're
not
at a store
sure,
at the bargain table. It's like, and you know what? I'm glad you mentioned that, Debbie, because everybody thinks that the setting for seeing a ghost is like what you said, the cemetery, the spooky house,
no,
the Victorian
they're
mansion or whatever,
they're in the grocery store. They're
they're
everywhere.
everywhere. They're everywhere. The other one time I was doing research, this little town up in Florida, and I was reading some of the things that had happened. I was researching this one place.
I'm gonna go out of frame for a second, just so you know. Yeah,
That's fine. I find out that I want to say in the 60s or 70s, a guy finds out his wife is having an affair, runs after his wife and her lover in the Winn-Dixie and shoots them in the Winn-Dixie. And I'm thinking to myself, it's horrific, but at the same time, it's funny because I'm thinking, I wonder how many people went to that Winn-Dixie and were getting really weird panic attacks, okay, or
yeah,
seeing things in the Winn-Dixie, not knowing that maybe, of course, the Winn-Dixie's never gonna, say anything about
yeah,
it. And after a while, news fades. This guy had been running. He ran after, especially the guy, the lover. He had run after him through the Winn-Dixie before he caught up to him and shot him. Okay,
oh my
would
gosh,
know that this happened in the Winn-Dixie, like the supermarket. Like,
yeah.
so
You
yeah.
just never know. You never know when something's gonna pop up. And a lot of times it's funny, and
Oh, like that. Let me tell you something. That story about the bargain store, bargain bin ghost. You read that book. It's really good. Oh my God, that's great.
and I went, "You're a ghost," and he went, "Yep," but he got this big smile, like "Gotcha,"
Yeah, and
and then he vanished. I'm just like, "Oh man." So like now I've learned
you
if I'm
better
not
like,
sure, I
even no
reach
matter
out
how
and
solid they look,
I'll touch them to
just in
make
case,
sure.
just in
You know.
case. So, are you? It sounds like you've got that project and you're going to do a road trip, but are you planning to do any type of presentations, Debbie, or anything like that, or you just don't have
I
time for
am
that?
so booked. I am actually at a lot of well, I'm good, pretty much good till August.
Okay,
I'm pretty open, and then I have a haunted Michigan presentation at a senior living,
okay.
independent living place, and then October I have, gosh, cemetery talk.
Well, now I
I'm
imagine October is like always a big
I
month.
am booked Devil's Night Day, I have a presentation. Halloween, I have two presentations back to back.
Okay.
And then I don't know what I'm going to do for Halloween night. I'm probably just going to come home and
Yeah, I know.
go to bed. Um,
Yeah,
hang out with
recovery
the
mode.
neighbors, you know. Um, yeah, I'm doing that. You know, stuff pops up during during the year. You get calls,
Mm-hmm.
or you get emails. There's a couple, radio shows I've done in the past, podcasts I've done in the past, and
Okay. Do you have your own
everyone's
paranormal group, or do you?
yeah, it's Shadow Stalkers Paranormal.
Okay, Shadow Stalkers. And do you just work in that immediate area of where you live at, or do you go any further out in case somebody wanted to contact you?
Depends on where the case is. I mean, we will go farther out,
Okay.
but yeah, they can find us on Facebook at Shadow Stalkers Paranormal.
As far as I imagine the best bet is just to contact you if
Yeah,
they.
you can contact me through Facebook or my email's in all my books. You can
Okay.
put my email. You have my email. You can put it up on your site.
Yeah, I was gonna put the link also to your personal website as well, which is Debi Chestnut, DEBI, right?
Yeah, hyphen Chestnut. It hasn't been updated in months. I have to go in and update it, but
Okay. Okay.
I've just been so busy.
But I'll
I
put no, I know that sometimes and time
and
slips by very
bo
quickly.
boating season's coming up in another couple months, so that's it for the summer for me. I try not to do too much during the summer.
No, I can imagine because there your weather is during winter. I imagine a lot of things can't be done because of the snow,
We
right?
have 6 months. Like we pull the
Wow.
boat out is September to September, October, and we're out of the water till May.
Okay. So when summer
So
rolls in, everybody's like, "That's it. Yay."
yeah, it's like don't ask me to do anything on the weekends in the summer because I'm boating. I'm on my boat.
Yeah, there you go. That's a
We take the dog out swimming and because water's like crack to him, so we take uh we take him out swimming and
no,
that's
you
well I live on the water, so the boat's in the backyard.
right. It's like, okay, yay. No, no, I totally get it. I totally get it.
Well, you get it. You're in Florida. I
I'm in
mean,
Florida, so but I understand what it must be like that these are the few months that I get out of the year that if I don't do it now this time and enjoy it, then I
it's
need
gone.
to, it's
You
gone.
can't get it back. So yeah, I try not to do too much in the summer if I can, especially on the weekends.
It's Debbie
If I
time.
can help it, because I'm
Yeah.
boating. I'm on the boat, and
Yeah,
I got a
no.
short season here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So we're doing that, and I don't know. A lot of times, there's radio shows or podcasts, their guests canceled at the last minute.
Mm-hmm.
They email me or message me on Facebook. My guest canceled. Can you go
Save
live in
me.
20 minutes? Yeah, sure, no problem.
Okay, I'm gonna keep that in mind, Debbie, okay?
Keep that in mind because I will do that. I always step in if they need me.
That's fantastic.
It's happened a few times where their guest is canceled and or
Yeah, it
had an
happens.
unforeseen circumstance, and
It happens.
yeah, it's like, can you go live? Yeah, let's go. I'm like, what are we going to talk about? I don't know. We'll make it up as we go. Works for me.
That's
Let's go on
right. That's
there.
right. That's right. Believe me, I'm sure you
And
got plenty of interesting material to talk about. I'm sure of that.
oh, we could go on for hours.
I bet. I bet. But anyway, Debbie, thank you so much for spending this time. It has been absolutely wonderful. Like I said, I could keep on talking to you for hours and hours and hours. So, like I
I
said, I'm
know
going
I
to,
could talk. So let's go off air. We'll chat.
yeah, it has been great. It has been fantastic. And
Thank you for having me. I
I
really
will get a
appreciate
hold of you definitely. I'm going to put you on my, what is it? Yeah, emergency,
it.
emergency
And speed
contact.
dial. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. You have been absolutely wonderful. You have no
Thank
idea how
you for
wonderful
having
you are.
me.
Okay, and good luck on your new project, okay?
Thank you. You too. Keep in touch.
Likewise, take care, darling.
Okay. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Isn't she wonderful? I think she's wonderful. You're like, oh, Marlene, you're so easy to please. Yeah. I don't know. This has been a long interview, but oh my God. You know what? Again, and I've said this before, when I have guests that have been doing this for so long, okay, uh, I love to speak to them, not only because they have their own stories of like what happened with her, that ever since she was a child, she was having experiences. In other words, before she became a paranormal researcher, and then uh, she started having all these experiences as an adult, and uh, almost that it was a work in progress. One of the things that I say that in the field of paranormal research, no matter how many books you read, no matter how many shows you look at, it will never ever ever take the place of field work, of being out there, of knowing how to handle certain situations, or in some cases really boring stuff where nothing happens. And I'm sure by listening to her that she agrees with me that this is like an invaluable part of becoming a paranormal investigator. But at the same time, what she described, that encounter that she had in that Victorian mansion, as to like it was almost like a cautionary tale, because she herself admits it. I didn't know what I was doing. I got myself in hot water because I was kind of like, I was thinking, I really, in other words, that she did not take the time to really research and didn't take the hints of that whatever was there was maybe not what she was used to. And she says, you retreat, you back out. If you come across something that you think this is not a regular old dead person, then I need to do a let me get out of here. And some people will think, well, you're showing fear. No, that's not what it means. You're not showing fear. You are just reconnoitering and then backing out to see what is really going on. Okay. And let me tell you something. She made a very good point about when you're talking about a dark entity, whether it's a non-human dark entity, how easily they will take an invitation, like she said, not because you say yes, like you think of as in with another human being, like, well, if I didn't actually say you're invited, you're not invited, that they assume that the invite is extended because you don't leave. Okay. You know how they say, like, if you don't protest, then you're saying okay. Well, it's almost along those lines. So yeah, it's not stupid to, in those situations as a paranormal investigator, to back out and then make decisions or get better information. There's no cowardice in that. Believe me. Believe me. And I mean, I'm sure you heard her story about what happened to her for quite a while. Anyway, guys, I hope you liked this show. I loved it. I absolutely loved Debi. I'm going to have the links to her website. She's got fiction and nonfiction books out there. As you could tell, she's a lecturer. I'll have the link to her website for her group, in case anybody out there in Michigan, or, I mean, contact her and I'm sure she'll let you guys know if she can help you out. Or if not, maybe she has some other reputable group that maybe she wants to refer you to. All right, she's got a lot of years of experience, so definitely somebody that you can trust in a situation like this. So guys, don't forget, subscribe so you get notifications. If you're seeing me on the YouTube or you're listening to a podcast version, visit MiamiGhostChronicles.com. Submit your true story, true believers. Don't forget about me. Catch me on Facebook and on Twitter. I do a lot of live streaming there. I've got some fantastic guests coming up, guys. I am going crazy looking to find not only new and interesting people in the paranormal field of and all, but even people that have been around for a while. Okay, because sometimes these people, they've been producing work all along, and it's great to bring them back on and hear what's been happening in paranormal land with them. So guys, thank you so much. It's been wonderful. You're all wonderful. Have a great day. Take care.